Thank you. Something changed here, so that's good. I'm going to go again. Let's see.
9:20 around. So, 1.5 hours from here.
Yeah, so.
And again, 1.5 hours. That's right. Right. Then I'll come around the same time, 2:30. Right. And 2:30 to 3:30, you will be having the class. Then you can take rest and come to the dinner party today, conference, workshop dinner, right?
Workshop dinner tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just tell me where to go.
I'll pick. So, right. What time is it? You are also invited.
We're good?
So that's the location that when my students will help you, you can get it.
Okay, so today, we're ready? No. Yes? No. Okay. Today I'm trying to bring together some of the things we've done before and give you a bit of a checklist for things to consider, concepts to consider if you have a new system and you're designing it, right? So I've got one slide deck for the user side and one slide deck for the world, the outside the user. And some of this will be new, but some of it will be, remember we talked about this Monday, or remember we talked about this Tuesday, sort of thing. So I wanted to clarify some terms because I've heard people using terms in different ways, and so at least I thought I'd share the way I think these terms are. So cognitive psychology, I shortcut it and sometimes say it's what software is your brain running. You know, it's not going to solve your problems on the couch like Sigmund Freud, right? But it's more like how does your brain process knowledge. So that's about acquiring it, retaining it, using it. And then there's human factors engineering. And we're going to do cognitive, physical, and organizational, right? So some people say human factors is about above the neck and below the neck. And the below the neck is like ergonomics and, are you bending over too much at work? And then above the neck is like, are you making mistakes? What can we do to decrease your mistakes? But it's useful to remember this organizational piece because a lot of human factors is going into an organization like a hospital and saying, you are not efficient, How are you allocating patients to beds? We can fix this and make it better. Right? Okay. So then there's also human-computer interaction, which is a field that's a little broader than human factors because human factors is more engineering types. And the HCI people includes a bunch of design people who may not know or care about engineering. But I think this is interesting because part of the reason we study this is because we are sometimes terrible at predicting what our users will do, right? And when I was in the corporate world, I was helping run a UX lab for Don Norman. Don Norman's sort of a famous person in UX, and so I was working for him, and we set up a lab, and we were trying to be an online university. Have people heard of Coursera here? So Coursera does all these certificates. So we're trying to be like Coursera, but before YouTube. Okay, so the ancient days before YouTube. So it's really hard to do online university when there's no video, right? And we had some software developers who were good people. They were not mean people or bad people, right? But they would design this interface for this online course, and then we would put them on computers, and then we'd bring in users, like, hey, you're going to test this. And we have the cameras on the users, and we're watching the cameras from the back room. And Don Norman and I and a couple other people. And there was one user who had a legal pad. Let me borrow this legal pad. Yeah. And he was so frustrated by the software that he was hitting himself on the head and cursing, and I said, I'm calling up the software developers, like, you have to come see this. And they're like, what? I don't believe you. I'm like, you have to come see, right? And so they walk down the hall and enter our little command room, and they're just like, so often the UX team is not believed unless it is seen. And that just demonstrates to me that we're terrible sometimes at predicting how our users will behave, right? And so you might have a great idea for a new company, and you're like, oh, and everybody's going to use my app to order their food, something like this, and it's going to be better than all the other apps. And then you try it with a couple of people, and they're like, eh? So it's really useful to bring in the psychology and the HCI. Right?
So the previous example, why were they so surprised? The one you were just mentioning.
Why was it so bad?
No, why were they so surprised? You were just mentioning the example.
Oh, I mean, the software engineers had devised this interface that looked okay. It looked basically okay. It was trying to step you through learning accounting, I think it was. And the worst thing in a software interface is if I don't know where to click next. Like, I don't know what to do. Right? So they were on a web page, and it had said something like, you have this important assignment that's due in an hour. And there was nowhere that said where to click to find it or to turn it in. And I mean, it was not complicated stuff, but it was big enough to cause great anxiety. And the software developer had to see it in person to then run off and fix it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So here's a little decision-making activity. We're going to do an activity here for about 5 or 10 minutes in pairs. And your friend has asked you, help me figure out which TV to buy. And I'm going to ask you to spend about 8 minutes online with your partner and figure out which TV to buy. And here are the criteria. Your friend says this. Okay. Does this make sense? Okay, so there's not a right or wrong answer, right? But I just want you to experience the decision making under time pressure a little bit. You want me to put people in pairs, or you're ready to go? Sorry? You will.
You would be good, sir.
You're good in your pair. Okay.
We are.
You're a pair. You're going to be a pair? Okay. You're going to be a pair, and you can be a 3 or something. Okay, so go for it. Go for it. Start. You can start. I think you're with her. Yeah. I'm going to put my timer on for 8 minutes. So at the end of 8 minutes, I want you to have, like, they should buy this TV. Is this possible to do on a phone? Is this working on the phone? Okay. Okay. It's what?
The signals here are bits. Like
Oh. Oh.
So it doesn't tell you. There is also 65, but it's not.
3 minutes. Two minutes. One minute. 10 seconds. Okay, let's stop. All right, let's hear let's just quickly go through the groups and say the size of your TV. We're going to ask who has the biggest TV that meets the requirements. How big is yours?
55.
Yours is 55? Okay. How big is yours?
65.
65? 55? 55. All right, so y'all are sort of sticking with 55. How much does yours cost? Let's go for who's the cheapest one.
49,900.
Wow. 49, okay. 96.
1,17,000.
117. One, right at 1.
1,29,990.
Okay, you went right up. And your TV's still 55?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some vastly different results. Like if all of you came as consultants to the friend would be like, who are y'all? You know, some of you are not as good as the others, right? Okay, so I guess I'm saying this not by say that you did a bad job, but more that this is a hard problem. So who thinks they would do a better solution if they had more time? If you had more time, would you get a better solution? Okay. How much more time would you need, do you think?
1 day.
Like 5 minutes? All day? What's-
All day.
All day. And you're going to like hunt through the website all day. You would be a very expensive consultant, right? But maybe you could do a better job with all day. Okay.
Surfing the internet would take a lot of time, sir, because we have to visit a lot of different sites and compare a lot of prices and specifications.
Sometimes even after we compare the specs, they are still confused because they are very competitive.
Means there are many products at the same price range, like there is only difference of 1,000 rupees. So there are similar products by different brands.
Yeah.
There could be a problem with it. Which brand does the customer prefers?
And so there's not one website that lets you hunt all the brands and filter?
No,
Okay.
not exactly one. There are multiple sites. They give different types of offers for everything else.
So maybe that's an opportunity for a product then, right? You need some comparison shopping thing. I mean, Amazon tries to do that in the US, where Amazon will sell everything and then try to let you filter. But I don't think Amazon conquers the whole world so much like here.
In India, there are two big giants, sir, Amazon and Flipkart. They both are in competition.
What's the second one?
Flipkart.
Flipcut?
Flipkart.
Flipcut, okay. Flipcard, like card, okay. Okay, so this is a task that was time pressure, and I was particularly trying to push the time pressure a little bit by like 3 minutes, you know. And you can't, you have to cut corners when when you don't have the full time. You have to make best guesses and judgments. So your users are often going to be doing this, right? Because they also have a brain that is limited, and maybe their significant other is talking to them and they're distracting, or their boss is talking to them. So the users that you're envisioning, you're like, my user is going to love my data dashboard, and they are going to make the perfect decisions about which product to sell next quarter. And they are so distracted, and you just don't know. So you almost have to imagine these distracted and imperfect users. So we're going to go through some of the things today about what makes that hard. You could say, oh, I needed better requirements. My job would have been easier if I had better requirements. That's another thing you can say. But often you don't have all the requirements, right? You have to make do with what you can. And so it turns out there's a whole science of people analyzing the way our brains take shortcuts the best we can. So let's look at the factors that affected you. Has anyone heard of satisficing? Satisficing is a technical term for I want to be satisfied, but I'm just going to try to meet all the criteria. So I could take a different approaches, right? So the thing is that the optimal world is some mathematical world where we find the perfect solution to a giant math problem, which is here's these requirements. But the real world is not really like that. So you have to do the satisficing. It's like, okay, here's a bundle of TVs. They all meet the criteria, but now I have to pick and choose. And then you can eliminate them And then the lexicographic idea is that I'm going to, maybe I have multiple attributes and I start to realize that some attributes are more important than others. So when my spouse and I are, data-driven professor nerd type people, and so when after we married, we were trying to decide where to move. We got married in Boston, and we were like, well, we want to move somewhere else, maybe better jobs. And so we had an Excel spreadsheet with 14 variables evaluating cities on things like medical care quality and proximity to airport and quality of the schools and all these variables, cost of living. And it becomes overwhelming, right? That was just 14 variables. And today it's so easy to get data that you can have hundreds of variables. And so you have to know which ones to pay attention to. Yeah. So do you think you were affected by the pretty pictures on the website? Or you're like, no, I'm not affected by pretty pictures. Not today? Okay. So were you even seeing pictures on the website, or are they too small? Like if they're as big as your thumbnail, then maybe they're too small to affect you. And that's an example of mobile versus desktop. So when I've done this exercise in classes, you get some people on their phones, some people on desktop. And the desktop people are more prone to the pictures because they're big pictures. And there are marketing people that work really hard to make this attractive,
I didn't even have to, because it was very clear on the laptop.
Okay.
So I didn't even have to see the image. It's already there, big.
It's just right there. Yeah.
I didn't have to even scan for it. Probably makes a difference. Mobile was,
Yeah. So it turns out that advertisers, I don't know if you've ever seen these do you have billboards here? Like, on the side of the road, right? I mean, I should say, yeah. I try not to look too stupid, but I haven't been on the roads enough to know. There will sometimes be ads that are just like the name of the product. It might just be like Apple. And it's not really saying Apple's great, it's just more like Apple. And then you're like, why spend money just saying that? Okay, so psychologically, there's a thing about recognition. So if you're going to the store and maybe you're at the store and I'm trying to buy soap for my bathroom and there's all these brands of soap and what do? It's a little overwhelming. My brain is like, don't get overwhelmed, just pick the one you recognize. And that's a shortcut method. So if advertisers can get you to recognize it, you may know nothing about the soap called Spring Fresh, but you're like, oh, I've seen it, I've heard of this one, it must be good. And so the advertisers are just trying to get it into your head. Right.
But we have TV shows, serials like drama or something. So it usually for half an hour. But within that half an hour, the advertisement will be for say 10 minutes. And even if you tune to FM radio, so like every 5 minutes.
So a lot of ads.
Yeah, 5 minutes ad, 5 minutes shows.
Wow.
So too much of advertising.
Are there services you can pay that cut the ads out? Sometimes there's like premium, TV.
That is present, but not in TVs.
Yeah.
But we have it in like YouTube, Amazon.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there are people paid a lot of money to do this, right? I mean, this is not like, if you're an engineer, you shouldn't be thinking like, oh, those are just the artsy people. I can ignore them. No, they have power over your brain. It's worth thinking about. Human emotion has been characterized this way in two axes. Valence is sort of good or bad. So the bad is over there, the good is over here. And arousal level. And this is like how pumped up you are. So if I think I've got some examples. Yeah, if I'm pretty pumped up and it's bad, I might be frustrated. And you can go through, all of these things from the movie. Did this movie come out here and get popular? Yeah. So I could be really excited about a big game, the big match. I could be happy but calm, right? Oh, my family is all here. I'm calm. I'm happy about that. And then I could be low energy and unhappy, so then I may be depressed or sad. So that's the two-axis valence and arousal for human emotion. And so has anybody seen customer journey maps? Yeah. So journey maps are often trying to track the process. So maybe I have to buy car insurance and they're tracking at every stage of the process of the journey. What is the human's emotion. And usually there's a thing like, oh, I needed car insurance, and maybe I'm a little aggravated. And then I see there's so many options, and it's so complicated, and I feel like it's a scam, and then I'm really upset, right? So, yeah. So emotion might affect, did memory play a role? So I saw many of you taking notes. How do you think your memory was doing? Would you have done the same on this decision if you were tired, if it was 11 p.m. at night? No. So you maybe have more energy now. Or maybe you're fine because I'm taking notes, so it's okay.
I don't trust my own judgment then.
Might not trust your own judgment then. And that's what's wise. I think I said earlier, if you're going to make big life decisions like whom to marry or where to move, don't be tired. Right? Don't be tired or drunk or anything. Right?
Also, I feel like when you say that, would you have performed better if you had more time? I don't think it was about time. I think it was more about the consumer perspective. Like, okay, you have the criteria, but do you want the maximum of features? Like, what's your priority? Is saving money your priority? Is maximum features your priority? Because then I think all of us would have, fit somewhere in, like, if he wants to save money, maybe their team. If they want maximum amount of features, our team. Somewhere in the middle, a particular.
That's a good point.
More time with the user.
So you're arguing that your teams are optimizing for different factors. Okay, I'd buy that. Yeah, because a lot of people were staying at the 55. I was surprised. But that's fine. Yeah. So this is all getting to things that can affect your decision making, right? Your decision can be affected by the emotion, by the memory. And there's a thing in memory called primacy and recency. People heard of this? So this is a famous study task from like 100 years ago by this guy, Ebbinghaus. And what he does is he gives you a list of like 20 words, like dog, book, chair, whatever. And then he'll repeat them out to you, and then he'll ask you to write it down as many words as you can remember. And it turns out that if I gave you 20 words, people all remember like the first 2 or 3 and the last 2 or 3. And that's called primacy and recency. So there's part of your brain that was like, oh, this is a novel task, and so it encodes it a little more heavily, and the recency just hasn't died yet. The memories haven't died. So you get these primacy and recency. The words in the middle are forgotten. Well, that means if I'm an advertiser, if I'm Amazon or Flipkart, right, I'm going to try to put things into your view. And the more I can put things into your view, you're going to remember the more recent stuff. And maybe you're going to hit back, or maybe you won't, right? But I'm going to... Which one?
In competitions, if you're performing, maybe it's better to perform first or last.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's memory. And we talked about this slide before about workload, right? You don't want to be bored. You don't want to be totally stressed out. So, and if I had given you the same task, and I was like, and you have 2 minutes, you'd be like, okay, Steven's just like stupid today, right? I mean, you might not think that, but you would be like, this is ridiculous. Like, that's not even a reasonable request. And so that's when you're over here, right? Okay, so that's memory. The social factors. So how many of you think you would have gotten the same answer if you weren't in pairs? Like, how did being in a group help or hurt?
Different perspective.
So you think it helped? Because I saw some of the teams were like, oh, let's both look up things and then maybe synthesize.
So you may search for specific big screen TVs. I may search for maximum features, and we will meet somewhere in the middle and choose the specific team.
I mean, that sounds good if you can do that. Yeah. Y'all had 3 of you going. What were you doing the same thing?
So what we did, we have scanned 3 different websites.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So he chose a different website, I chose a different website, and we chose a different website. So we all clubbed down all the choices we have got from the criteria.
And we have checked if there is any same choice.
Same alternatives or not.
Nice. So that's parallel processing. So that really helped. So that's less about social dynamics, because it sounds like you were less like, oh, this is the one for my friend, and more, like, you should do this one. It was more just like comparing features, right? It might be with the social dynamics, if this were a beloved friend, if you're a Mohit student and you really want to honor him, then maybe you have some personal investment. You don't want to get him a terrible TV. So maybe there's a little more pressure. So the thing about other people's opinions, the compliance is about, do you do what your friend says, right? So if your friend says, oh, we should do this one, it could be that you think, oh, my friend is trustworthy. I trust my friend to be right. My friend is going to have the facts. Or it could be that I'm feeling the pressure, especially in a slightly larger group. Like in a group of 3, it's going to be more than a group of 2. You might feel pressure to be like, well, I don't want to rock the boat. You know, these 2 guys are saying this, but, you know, so it's harder for you to fight the other 2 than if it's just 2 of you, right? So you can be aware of that in decisions. Like if you're trying to make a decision at work, how many people are there, and is there going to be pressure this way? If they're going to be users, what sort of peer pressure are the users going to put on each other about commenting, about, you know?
Seeking validation.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Because it's that social pressure is a big influence of behavior and decision making.
Real setting probably, there's always a hierarchy. Even if it's called a team, there's always a boss, there's middle, and there's some. So even if they're saying something, at the end of the day, the boss says something and everyone aligned with the
Right.
boss.
So there may be this hierarchy where the boss says something, even though they had to have a rich discussion, everyone's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And it would be great if that were not the case, right? It would be great if the boss could create a safe space for disagreement that would, everybody's like, well, we have the evidence accumulated. So even though you say this, you know, hey, boss, look at this evidence. And if the boss doesn't yell about that, then you're good. Right? But it's not always the case. So were all your websites, were you reading English, or are you reading Hindi, or what are you reading? Okay. Are they all just English, or are there also Hindi versions?
We have an option to change in some websites.
Okay.
Select the language.
How do you think the choice matters so that it defaults to English?
Some specifications, if you convert it in Hindi, it would be harder to understand. Like specification, like I think not screen size, but the processor information about speeds. If you change it to language to Hindi or any other language, there would be a harder time understanding.
Okay. You were going to say something.
We're going to say the same thing. So, like, most of us, like, since it's kind of a societal norms also, like, from like our very young age, we have thought that if you are going to be successful in life, you want to be further in your life, you have to read it in English.
Oh.
Since it's a general language, so like in like school level, so from like class 5 to 10, we have written in a regional language. But when we opted out for like in higher studies in 11, 12, then we are studying the books in English. Why?
Okay.
Because it will be understandable, much understandable for us when we are going for further higher studies. Because the teachers are going to be like giving lectures in English.
Yeah.
They will not be like lectures in Bengali or Hindi or in the regional.
Okay.
So that societal norms plays a big role.
Which might add some cognitive load.
Yeah.
Right? So you got
it adds up very much cognitive load, because I remember like when I was in my early BTech days, bachelor days. So I came from urban city area. So, and one of my batchmate or roommate, he was from like a very primitive area from Bakura. So it's like a rural area. So he doesn't know English that much. So we used to sit side by side in our class. So professor is giving lecture in English, and he was like listening to 2 words, then asking me, hey, what is he saying? I'm not understanding. I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like back and forth. I was kind of playing a role as a translator, like a teacher is saying this. So he has to do extra like work to understand what the teacher is saying. And since he was not being able to understand what the teacher is saying at the first place, he had to come back to the hostel, read the topic again, then understand the thing.
It's a lot. Not only mental load at the time, but it's actually a lot of time spent
Yeah.
doing it. That's right.
That norm works here.
Right. Wow. And I talked before about the redesign of the Airbnb app for China, and he had to really do it differently. It's not just the language. The language comes out to be a big deal. If you're making a product, the internationalization of language is really hard. It's always harder than you think, and expensive. So if you can make a product that doesn't even use any words, then that's great. Just, arrows and shapes and buttons. That's hard though.
Even those who have learned the language to some extent, so when we are reading about some technical stuff or something like that, it actually doubles the cognitive load because first we read it in English, then most of us, the beginning stages of like engineering or something like that, and then we have to think the same thing in our native language. So it's like 2 steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So when I went to be an exchange student in Germany when I was in high school, it took about 2 months, and then I started to think in German. And I remember waking up one day and like, oh, I'm thinking in German now. This is interesting. It was different. And so now I can still speak German okay, but I'm not thinking in German anymore. It's pretty rare.
India is also one of the 12 countries that doesn't teach us their national language. You have visited multiple countries, you see their language, they are teaching their own languages, but India is one of the 12 countries that don't teach us their national language. We are reading in English only.
So you're not taking lessons in Hindi?
Only one particular subject would be our language and other subjects will be in English.
Yeah, one language will be there. Definitely one language will be there. That is a regional language. Like for example, Mohit is there, me, but I am from the south of India and he is from this side. So we converse in English. It's a mutual language.
Yeah. And language is really important for people, right? I was reading the news and there was this news bite about somebody in Bangladeshi, and there was a big outrage. It's like, no, you don't. You speak Bengali. And I was asking a colleague, like, why was there such a big outrage? That seems like just a mistake. And she was explaining that people are, you're in my country, you should speak this language, that sort of thing. So it's a big deal. So you don't want to, it'd be like showing up for the party in the wrong clothes or something like this, right?
Somehow lately, there's been a political uproar everywhere, not just in India, but specifically in India. For example, in Mumbai, people have been saying, somebody's coming, a reporter is coming and he's saying, why are you not talking in Marathi? You have to talk in Marathi. And then in the south, also in Bangalore, there's
That's
been
more
a
of
huge...
politics, and I think the problem started with after independence. The states were divided based linguistically. So based on the language they were divided, but the population there was not so. It was not like completely like the same. Not you take any state in India, it won't be the case. But due to some reasons, they were divided based on language.
Yeah.
Also like Mumbai and Bangalore, they're like the hubs, like one is Silicon Valley and the other one is like
Banker.
Bollywood.
Oh, okay.
So there are people coming from everywhere, and now the local population is getting frustrated due to the employment opportunities going to other people. It all makes sense.
Yeah. So at Iowa State, there's a lot of international students. And a couple of my students are Iranian, a couple speak Spanish and this sort of thing. And so one said, oh, I was on the bus. There's a lot of buses around. I was on the bus and I was speaking Persian with my friend, and somebody said, you should speak English because you're in America. And I was like, okay, that's not very welcoming, right? Like we're trying to be, people are supposed to be welcoming for everybody. So I think it's an ongoing battle. It's not like, yeah.
3 weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, I had visited Germany as well, and I met a couple of Indians, and they said that they've been living there for 10 years, but lately they have started feeling like people are staring or they're being rude, or in a first glance they're not that welcoming, and it is also due to because they believe due to the borders being opened and everybody just assuming that they're an immigrant rather than a person who's employed.
Yeah. This is in the U.S., you're saying?
No, in Germany.
In Germany. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I lived in Germany, it was like 87, right? So it was a long time ago, but they were just letting in Turks.
Yeah.
And so it was all the white Germans letting in the Turk immigrants and the refugees, and the Turks were working hard, but people didn't want them until the Turks set up the gyros shops, and then they liked their food.
Yeah.
So it's this ambivalence thing.
The kebab.
Yeah, the dinner kebabs. So it's hard with the language stuff. And I mentioned last time about we feel it's easier to work with people like us, right? But you'll get more ideas if you can work with people who are different. Yeah. Okay. Here's ABC, right? But now it's that middle thing turned to a 13. Right? Let me go back. So this illustrates that context matters, right? I'm not just trying to be silly, right? But the context matters. So where we're surrounding it. So what language are we there with? And what circumstances are you in? And so you always gotta, that's why I kept telling you about like writing your stories. And the product is living inside a story. You know, somebody's using it because they are hurried in the morning and need to do this, get this thing done. Or somebody's using it because they have their distant relative and they want to connect. They haven't been able to connect well. Yeah. Does anyone see what's wrong with this sentence?
So you're saying what's wrong?
Yeah, what's wrong with this sentence? Yeah. So there are two these. Now, I think as if you are not a native English speaker, you're probably better at this than my students who are native English speakers. I've been in classes where like nobody can see anything wrong for 4 or 5 minutes. And it's like it's right there in front of you, right? But your brain has expectations. It overrides your vision. You know, we're not doing cameras, so. In language, this is still on language, there's a thing called pragmatics. So it could be raining in a horrible mess, and I say, oh, the weather's really great. So then if I'm a computer trying to listen to what Stephen's saying and interpret that, because maybe I'm an AI agent on a badge on my shirt or something, it'd be like, oh, Stephen thinks that raining terribly is really great weather. Okay, log that for the future. So if this AI doesn't understand pragmatics, it's not going to work. So language is this pretty complicated thing. And you notice the agents like ChatGPT and Claude and the others, they're living outside this world. Like there's no weather in ChatGPT, right? There's no external forces. It's just in its own little world. So the pragmatic stuff can get lost pretty easily.
Technically, there are pragmatic studies they mention sometimes. So, in essence, like technically, what does it actually mean?
The pragmatics? It means I mean, I'm not a linguist, right? So, but to me, it means the meaning that's captured in the context around the use. So I can't understand what the language means unless I understand a little bit of the context too.
So am I wrong in saying I used to understand it's like the practical part of it? How you assess something in terms of practice, daily practice or practical? It's not that, it's the context.
I mean, it overlaps a little bit with this practice, like the use in, practice. Maybe if everybody's sarcastic about the weather, the weather's really great. Yeah, it sure is really great. And maybe that's the way the people in this city talk about the weather. So you could talk about that as practice. But I think there's this context piece. But you can, if you Google it and I'm wrong, then I'm okay.
Something like the class was boring. Something like when you go out and your friend asks how was the class, you say class was great.
Yeah, right.
No, that was great.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, I won't be able to catch that sarcasm.
This comes up, this sort of sarcasm type stuff. I've seen examples analyzing people talking about a date after the date too. Like, how was your date? Oh, it was a perfect match for me, something like that, right? It's like, yeah. I put up a map of Namibia here. Here's the map of Namibia. So if you hold up your left hand like this, everybody hold up your left hand and stick your thumb out. And now you have you have a map of Namibia because it's got this like piece and it's got this little piece out here where the Germans, the Germans really thought that if we grabbed this land too, we could go farther into the big rivers and travel elsewhere in Africa. Okay, you can stop. Thank you. But there's your Namibia map. And it has all these tribes. They say tribes. In the US, we wouldn't say tribes, but they say those. And they have all their native language, and then they all speak English as a national language, and most of them speak Afrikaans, which is the language of the South African people who dominated them and were terribly cruel to them. And so you could say, well, that doesn't seem right. Like, do we want to speak the language of the colonizer? Yeah. But they're like, well, we all know it, so we're just going to use it. So I was interested in the attitude about that. And you can have these accents. Does this happen in India? The educated versus uneducated, where like you can hear somebody talk and you're like, oh, they're educated. Okay. So you can have this a little bit in the US. It's not always true, but it's word choice is one thing, but there's also sometimes an accent, particularly in the US in the Northeast, where Harvard is and where all the education started. There's an accent from up there that you can hear.
In India, I think there's a superficial assumption because of the amount of languages we have that it's not about the accent, it's about the language. So people assume that if you speak English, you're educated.
Okay. And I know you're taught British English, right? Not American English. Here's an American English tip, because I get Indian students coming to Iowa State every year, and they'll come and ask questions, and they'll say, I have a doubt. And I'm like, what? So if you're in the US, I wouldn't say that. I would say, and not that it's terrible, I would say, I have a question. And the only time I use doubt in American English is like you tell me that there are 10 penguins outside, and I say, I doubt that. And so it's more like, I think you're lying. That's just a tip. Somehow, in the British version, that's okay, I guess. I don't know. At Harvard? Yeah, I mean, it's still the US, so I think you should still say, yeah. Oh, you want to hear the accent? Oh, okay, let's see if I can imagine that. Today we are going to speak about cognitive engineering, and it's going to be very interesting, and you will learn about this more later. I don't know, does that sound any different? I don't know. It's a little closer to British. No, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm from Texas originally, and so my kids laugh because if I get emotional, the Texas comes out. And like I was frustrated when they were younger teenagers, and I'm like, we gotta go, get back in the van. So there's Southern, Texan, Northeast, and then like Midwestern neutral. So in the US, they have newscasters on the TV who give the news, and they always get them from the Midwest, if they can, because they have the most neutral accent. And if you have the Southern accent, then everybody thinks you're stupid and uneducated, which is unfortunate, because in the South, all the schools are terrible. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm writing some software. I'm logging into the software. Here's what it says. It says either A or B. Who would prefer software that says A? Who wants A? Who prefers B? So the software, you're logging into the software, it's educational software. Hi. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. So oh yeah, that'll be exciting. Thank you. Who would prefer the software to use A? Okay, who prefers B? A couple people. Let's get to the point. So there's pros and cons. Tell me why you like A. Who likes A, and tell me why you like A.
So A, we are just suggesting, and the B is we are just instructing them specifically. And A would be more personal talks, and it is more suggesting, and it is more preferable for us if someone is saying it to is in person. But if someone is saying you are user 24, someone is exercise, it would not be feeling good, and we would not do the task particularly.
Okay, so A is more personal, you're saying, and you like that. You feel good factor, yeah.
And especially if you have to do an exercise, I would rather feel comfortable, somebody talking to me nicely rather than comments.
Okay.
I just make me nervous.
Okay, so B. Who likes B? We had some B advocates. What do you like about B?
Sir, B is more in a very professional way. The user must know what he must need to do. And in a high performing environment, he just needs the only action that, okay, you can go. For example, in the military, they just need the specific instruction because there is a very short time. So they just need to have the specific instruction to perform their job. Same way in the high performing job, it can be more useful.
That's right. You could be extremely time pressured. You could be military. You're like, just give me the thing to do.
Yes.
Don't give me all this fluff about, hello, welcome today, good morning. You know, like, yeah, it's just extra.
Yes.
So there's pros and cons, right? And it's worth understanding your users and their needs. So if maybe you're at home and you're studying and you're like not motivated and you want the welcoming, warm touch, but if you're the air traffic controller, is like the next plane right here, you know, just move on. So there's different circumstances for different needs. All right. Now you got something wrong. You just did a wrong math problem. So who likes? So who likes A? Does anyone prefer A? Okay, we have some A preferences. Who prefers B? Anyone? Okay, so the hands are different than the A, B people before. Okay, so why do you like A? Let's the A likers. Who likes it? Yeah.
When you make the comparison, then you use the efficient word after that.
It's a comparison. Yeah. Okay, and it's still personal, right? Okay.
Personal words, we get more efficient word from the person.
So it's going to be, you're thinking it's going to drive me and motivate me to get better. Okay? This is a little bit like a finger-wagging mother or something, right? Like, you can do better. Okay, thank you. Who likes B? He's like, okay.
It is much more specific. If you're doing anything wrong, okay, it's pointing out direct into your mistakes.
Okay, it's just you're incorrect. And then it very quickly tells you, this is wrong, try again. Okay, so it's about simplicity and speed. And again, it might depend on the circumstance you want, right? Maybe I need to move quickly, or maybe I want this personal touch. It could depend on how long am I using this software? Am I going to use it for like months and months? Is Duolingo a thing here? Yeah, and you get the little owl. It's like, hey, you know, streaks. And, yeah.
Now that I think about it, I also feel like it would matter a lot whether this text is written or is being called down.
Oh, great point. Is it written or being spoken? Right? If the text is spoken to you, there's even more of a difference about length, right? Because if it's spoken to you and you go to this previous one, that takes a lot longer to say. A is a lot longer to speak, right? Yeah. Yeah, I've even noticed, does anyone use ChatGPT with the phone app where it talks to you? And it's speaking? And it sounds like Scarlett Johansson or some attractive woman actress, right? And I was interested that I was trying it out, and I felt, when it was talking, I felt obligated to say thank you. You know, and I was like, I was just saying thank you, but I didn't feel that with the typing, right? So it's very different, the programming we have, you know. Yeah. So, you know, ChatGPT has been doing this more recently, as we talked about. They've been sort of praising you, like, oh, great question, or that's a good idea. You know, do you want me to help you with your other great ideas? And back in 1996, Clifford Nass at Stanford was a guy who was studying how computers are attributed with emotions by people. And he had a book called The Man Who Lied to His Laptop. And it's like, well, why would you feel so emotional about your laptop that you would tell it something that's wrong, right? Yeah. And so he was saying that when, you know, it's going to have a positive impact if you just sort of flatter people, right? So the ChatGPT folks know that. And you could say that that's anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism is just a fancy word for making things into people, right? The anthro means human, and the morphism means change shape. So I'm going to attribute things as to like they're human, even though they're objects. So Clifford Nass, you know, Reeves was the grad student, Cliff Nass is the professor. So Cliff and Nass are like, oh, people are anthropomorphizing their computers. And critics are like, no. You know, that can't be true. That makes the people so stupid. Like, they wouldn't do that. People are smarter than that. And Nass would argue, it's like, well, it's not that they're dumb, but it's easier to do that. It's less cognitive load to treat the computer like you treat humans that you're used to working with. So you could read these and decide like who you believe, right? Often when you're getting corrected, when it's like, hey, you messed up, people prefer the less personal. But if you're being welcomed and encouraged, they might want the more personal. Okay. Okay. We're going to switch to uncertainty. And there are two kinds of uncertainty. Here are the fancy Greek words, aleatoric and epistemic. Aleatoric, it comes from a Greek root that means dice, like throwing dice. You have dice here in India, right? People are throwing dice. And the epistemic is about the history of the information. So aleatoric is uncertain because the data is just unpredictable. I could say, oh, the weather prediction has aleatoric uncertainty because you just can't predict the weather very well. It's almost impossible to predict. We're getting better. We're down to, I don't know, do you believe the weather forecast here? Do you believe it like 1 day out, 2 days out, a week out? Again.
It was kind of like a firmer before, but right now it is getting better because, like, yesterday night it was rain.
Yeah.
At yesterday morning I think we all got a message in our phone like, in this region we'll have rains and thunderstorms. Please be cautious.
Okay.
But the timings are not very accurate.
Timings are a bit off, but there was rain at the evening.
Okay.
Some places the accuracy is more. Some places that is very
Some bit better is places, but it's within 24, 48 hours probably. Most people are saying it's reasonable. Yeah, it used to be, I mean, if you look at the history, there's some interesting history of weather prediction, and it used to be that it was just terrible, and it's much better now. And we hope that the US government will not cut all the funding for the weather satellites like they're threatening right now. I'm like, no, but. Okay, so that's the unpredictable data, like weather. Or you might say aleatoric uncertainty is also about your, maybe what your body's going to do, how your body's going to react to something, because it's never had this new drug, say. Will your body have this side effect of this drug? Okay, unavailable data is like, well, I've got a prediction for you, but I've got some uncertainty because I just don't have very much data. Maybe I've got data from last year, but not before that. Or I've got data on these kind of cars, but not these other cars. So that's the epistemic uncertainty. And so with unpredictable, you really can't do much about it. But with epistemic, you can push for like, let's go get more data. So this is going to come back about these types of uncertainty. Generally, there was a wave of economists and people in the 1950s that thought that humans did sort of math when they're deciding on their preferences. And they would talk about utility functions and utility curves. And then people came along and said, no, humans aren't really doing math like that. And instead, they're doing Bayesian probabilities. Has anyone heard of Bayesian probability? So Bayesian, there's a Bayes formula you can look up from this guy named Bayes, the first 5 letters there. And it basically says, like, you could say, there's a cow out in the hallway. And I say to myself, do I believe this? What's the probability of that being true? And that's going to be based on 2 kinds of prior probabilities. How many cows are there around? It's like, oh, there's a reasonable number of cows around. And how many times have I seen a cow in the hallway before? It's like, well, I haven't seen them in the hallway, so that's less likely. But I would probably be like, oh, maybe something unusual is happening. Okay. But if you said there's a penguin in the hallway, I'll be like, okay, how many penguins around? There's like almost none. And the prior on that is low. And the penguins are very low on penguins in the hallway. So I'm going to be like, I don't believe you. So there's a bunch of cognitive scientists who believe we're all walking around with these Bayesian priors that you learn about from your very early age. And on what is normal. You're going through the life and you experience this, you experience that, and you think, oh, that's normal. I'm going to put priors on that. That's what's likely. So here's an example of the people who thought we all have little math calculators in us. So we're going to go betting in the horse race. And we've got in gamble A, we say, there's a 10% chance you can win $10, and there's a 90% chance you lose $1. And on gamble B, there's a 90% chance you win $1, and there's a 10% chance you lose $10. So who wants gamble A? Does anyone want to bet on gamble A? Anyone want A? Nobody wants A? Anyone want B? Okay, you got to choose here. You're like, I don't know about this. All right, let me give you a chance to think. Who wants A? A. Ria's like, I'll take A. Okay, in the front here. Yes, on the back. Okay, we got some A people. Who wants B? Okay. Now, it is worth noting humans tend to vary on how risk averse you are. It's like, some people are really fearful, like, oh, I'm going to keep all my money right here. Other people, $10 may not be a big deal. Like, oh, I've got so much money, $10 is nothing, whatever. Right. So people vary a little bit. But if you do the math, gamble A is better mathematically, right? Because you're like, okay, 10% of winning $10 minus 90% of losing $1, and that's an expected value of 10 cents. And I'm doing here, 90% of winning $1 minus 10% of losing $10, that's like negative 10 cents. So it's very close. We're talking pennies. But, this one's better. And this is evidence that we are not human calculators, because most people don't look at those two and go like chunk, 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 and figure that out. If you're an economic person or a math person, maybe you would. Yeah. Okay, here's another one. You've got A and B. 1% chance of winning $100 or 100% chance of winning $1. Which one do you want? Who wants A? A. Ria's like, I want to win the big money. Okay. Who wants B? They're like, I want my $1. All right. So what's interesting is that these have the same expected value. So you do the math, they're the same, right? But a lot of people are excited about option A because it feels like an adventure, feels like special and unusual. And so generally people are bad at estimating probabilities. Our brains don't do that very well. And we're also biased by the win. So I could accentuate this by saying, like, you have a 1/10 of a chance of winning $1,000, right? I could keep the math the same and make it more extreme. And once you start seeing a bunch of zeros up here, you're like, And there's other studies about the way people handle money and numbers, about the power of free. So if I have, I'm standing and in the market and people are walking by and I have a little table and I have 2 kinds of chocolate and I say, these chocolates are, I don't know, how much should a chocolate cost? 50 rupees? 100 rupees? I don't know. So give me a number. 50. Okay, so I want cheap chocolate. What's the cheap chocolate?
10 rupees.
10 rupees. Okay, so I got my cheap chocolate for 10 rupees each, and I have really nice chocolate for like 100 rupees. Okay, so if you have this, people will come and they'll see the 10 rupees and they're like, ugh, that's cheap chocolate, I don't want that, and they'll pay the 100. But if I change the 10 rupee chocolate to free, I have I have excess from my stock and my store, needs to get rid of excess, then people all take the free chocolate. So it's not mathematical and linear. It's not like a linear equation. It's like the power of free is psychologically so powerful, it'll overwhelm your math, and you're just like, it's free, I must have it. Yeah. So this is all about things that are influencing the decisions, right? We're going back. So before you came in, I had them making decisions about which TV to buy, and we were talking about things that influence that. So we can be influenced by language, by emotion, and now this is all this sort of probability and uncertainty, which really messes with people's heads. So there's something called the availability heuristic. So I could ask you, without showing you all this, is it more likely to die of stomach cancer than an auto accident? And Americans, at least, will say, oh, it's way more likely to die of an auto accident. But that's not true. There's a lot of stomach cancer out there. And you say, well, why are they so screwed up? A lot of Americans will say, oh, it's 10 times more likely to die in a car accident. Well, that's way off of the numbers. Why are they so off? And it's this availability heuristic, because everybody knows somebody who's been in an auto accident, but you don't know necessarily somebody who's had stomach cancer. And so in your head, there's this availability, and you're like, oh, well, I know Martha, and she was in an auto accident, so must be everybody's in auto accidents. So that, so it's this availability thing, availability to your memory. And if advertisers can take advantage of that, that's why they're inserting themselves with the billboards and the ads on TV. They want you to be ready at the memory. So as soon as you think, soap, which soap should I buy? Which brands available in your memory? And they come right in. A heuristic, by the way, in case you don't know, a heuristic is, there's an algorithm, which is like a programming sequence. Like an algorithm's like maybe if I have a recipe I follow, that's an algorithm. You must add these ingredients and stir this at rate. If I have a heuristic, it's less structured than an algorithm. It's like, well, I need to put the bread together somehow and generally kneaded, and it's a little looser. So it's like a method that you're going to try to solve something. These are other biases. So recency, we talked about the primacy-recency effect. So things that you're going to lean towards things that are more available, that are more recent, that are more familiar. You're like, oh yeah, my sister uses that. That must be good. And that are more salient. That just means sort of big in your eyeballs or loud. It's like it's made an impression on you. So 3M is a company in the US that makes sticky notes. They invented the sticky notes, right? And they make a lot of tape and paint and make a lot of things. And they have some fancy software that tries to imitate what the human vision notices when you look at a product package. So then they would devise their product packages, like here's our new product for new sticky notes. And then it'll say, oh, the eye will first look here, and then the eye will look here, and then the eye will look here, because this is a top left and it's a big font, and then here's a bright red spot, so it's going to look there next, and it'll sort of map through the vision system. So that's the salience. And now more recently, we get social media, right? So that's people reinforcing, here's this thing, here's this thing, here's this thing. You should think about it, pay attention to it. And that's making it more available to you. Which, just in the contrary, this is a reason to not feed your brain with so much social media if you decide that direction, because they're feeding you with availability of whatever those people on social media want to feed you, right? So you're sort of giving up control over what your brain finds in the availability category. You're leaving that up to the influencers, which maybe you're like, okay, now I'm hip and that's great, I'm fine. But yeah, you gotta make a choice. There's another heuristic, the representativeness one. So I could say to you, I'm flipping a coin, heads and tails. Which of these is more typical? Is there one that seems more typical? A, who A is more typical? Who thinks B is more typical? Okay, so, but they're equivalent. Probability-wise, they're the same, right? And then there's this thing called the gambler's fallacy. If I've got 6 heads in a row, the gambler's fallacy is like, the next one must be tails. It's more likely to be tails now that I've had 6 heads in a row. It's like, well, it's not. It's still 50-50 every turn, So the gamblers out there in the casinos, are casinos a big thing here? Not so big here. Okay, so in the US, there's a lot of people who sometimes they call it stupidity tax. Sorry. You're going out, let's see how the microphone people can mute that, I don't know. But sometimes you're going out losing money because you're gambling, and it's the thrill of the gamble, but you almost never win, right? Yeah. It's a random small story. When I was at MIT, I had one of my roommates who was one of the card counters. So there's a game called Blackjack, and you get cards, and you can't go over 21, and they deal you cards. And he would count cards, meaning there were 5 decks on the table, and you have to just keep 2 numbers in your head to count cards. You have to know how many cards have gone by, and you have to, if you see high cards, you go +1, and low cards, you go -1, and then you divide those 2 numbers, and it tells you, should I ask for another card? And it gives you the probability that it'll be low or high, right? So he would go with his buddies in the card counting club, he was a math whiz, and then he would do hand signals like nose or something like this to indicate now is the time to bet. And his friend would act drunk and then make bets according to the hand signals. And he said that they would last about 15 minutes because if you win too much, the casino notices fast and then they kick them out. But that they would earn enough money to pay for their plane tickets, right? And there's a movie about this club if you want to watch it. And I forget what it's called, but you could Google like MIT card counting. He was the hand signals. He's using different hand signals than I'm used to. But no, that's everybody who gets this one. Right. The wait a minute signal I was not familiar with. It was like, wait a minute, or something like this. Right. Okay. So here, let's talk about privacy. So this is a concern for maybe how my data is being used, and this is going to influence the product, right? So you're going to develop some product, and you have to think about how the data is going to be used. Frequently what happens is that at Iowa State, I'll be asked to be a judge in a class where a bunch of students have designed apps. So undergrad graphic design class, maybe, they come in and they design, and you get students who are like, I've designed an app for undergrads to manage their weight and their health while they're in college. And here's my beautiful app. And it will be beautiful, and it will be in Figma, and have really nice screens. And then I'll say, who's going to buy your data? And they're like, what? And I was like, okay, so you can sell an app for a couple dollars or rupees, but the real money is in the data you're getting. What data are you collecting, and who's going to buy it? Because if you were doing health data about, you got 30,000 undergrads at Iowa State, and I know, because I'm the company, how they're using their bodies and what they're eating and how much they're exercising, then Nike wants that data, right? Or these different sports companies want that data so they can sell to them. And you can decide ethically if you want to sell the data. That's a different question. But somebody wants the data. And all the apps, like if you've got an app that you use and you're not paying a lot for it, then your data is the product, right? Your data is being used and subsidizing the cost. There's a company in the US that was started out as truck tracking. So they would put the little GPS things on the top of the trucks, and the trucks are driving around the US, and they're like, well, we've got to make sure our truck drivers don't stop too long for coffee and this sort of thing. And they're driving down the highways, and somebody at the company realized, like, well, we're tracking enough trucks now that we have sort of sensors on speed of the roads. Like, we have enough trucks on most of the roads that we can say pretty accurately what's the traffic rate on this road versus this road. So they switched to becoming a traffic data company. And the trucking is a tiny piece now, and really they're selling traffic data, which then you can use for all sorts of purposes. Okay, so privacy. So I got some slides. Lori Craner at Carnegie Mellon University. Carnegie Mellon is like a MIT sort of place that's not MIT, but it's really not. It's really a bunch of smart people. And they're especially strong in robotics. And so I really like her slides. So I've got some of her slides I'm going to summarize. She talks about the trouble with being human. Humans are not capable of cryptographic keys. They have unacceptable speed and accuracy. But these humans are sufficiently pervasive that we have to deal with them. Right? So the humans are around, but they're not very good at security. And so Lori Craner says what we need to combine, do people eat peanut butter and jelly here? Maybe not. So this is supposed to be a sandwich that's very popular in the US, is the peanut butter on one side and the jelly on the other. And when you see it, you're like, oh, they're about to be a sandwich. And her goal is, can we combine security and privacy with usability? And this is a stretch, because usability is like, let's make it easy for humans. And if you make security easy for humans, then it's not very secure, usually. So normal usability doesn't have an adversary trying to attack you, right? It'd be like, oh, I'm going to design my app to be usable in a big windstorm. Maybe then you have an adversary to fight. So we need to, take care of the attackers. And so here's an example of what she talks about. So humans, there need to be the security, but humans are if I'm doing security, humans are a secondary constraint. I don't need to worry about the humans. First, I need to worry about security. If I worry about usability, I say humans are the first constraint. And if I'm doing usable security, this is Lori Craner's term, usable security, then I'm going to consider both. So here's some examples. I'm mostly worried in the security world, when you're just wearing your security hat, you're like, humans are the attackers. And then over here, usability, it's like, well, I need to make humans okay. And here we've got to worry about both, right? So you can see these different ones. And we're trying to end up here where we're combining this. And how do you do that when you're designing a secure system? So one example she gives is graphic passwords. So, click on the face, where humans' brains are really wired for faces. I don't know if you know that, like we have cells in our brain just for faces of people you love. Cells that light up. There's like face cells. And you can tell this in part because if you take a photo of somebody's face and you turn it upside down, then the face cells don't light up. Artists know this because if you are an artist, faces are one of the hardest things to draw because faces are we're really sensitive to faces. So a lot of artists will start learning to draw by drawing a face upside down because then it makes your face recognition incapable and you're just looking at proportions and lines and features. So I can say, the security person says, let me to the space of all possible passwords. I'm going to want a capital letter and a symbol and all these things they want. And the human person says, but how difficult is that to create? Like, how much pain are we inflicting on the person? And so they're trying to combine these, right? So there's this idea of try to represent both needs. The other part she talks about is this paradox of, well, people say they'll do one thing, but they don't really do it. They're like, oh yeah, I want my preferences to be private. I want all my data to be secure. But then when you say, so therefore I want OTPs on like everything you do, they're like, I don't care that much. Right? And so they'll back off. Have y'all heard of dark patterns? Usually in usability, people talk about design patterns. So a typical design pattern is like when there's a login, almost all the logins now have a forgot password link, right? And there's a whole thing you do about, I forgot the password, there's a new password, whatever. And the whole pattern about getting the OTP to check, and that's a pattern. Dark patterns are things that companies do to make you do behaviors that they want you to do, but you don't really want to do. So maybe you're buying airplane tickets and it'll have a thing appear that's like, only 2 seats left, buy now. And there recently was an expose about, I think it was American Airlines, and 3 other airlines were proven that that's all lying. It's just totally made up. And another one is like, this offer expires in 30 minutes. You get things like that. That's a dark pattern when it's not true, right? So when we talk about privacy, the privacy experts like Lori Craner talk about all these different flavors of privacy. I'm not going to read them all to you, but get a sense of these differences. There's an attitude, like what's my disposition to privacy? I have family members who are a little bit paranoid. They're like, oh, the world's out to get us. There are these evil people that are going to hack my email account. So if anything goes wrong with email, they're like, somebody hacked my email account. I'm like, probably not. Let me talk to you. Let me look at your email account. Right? But she's worried. Preferences, concerns, right? I've got a concern about a situation. So we did have a woman, a staff member who works with me, and her email was actually hacked, and identity was stolen. So people were sending stuff as if they're her. It's taken a lot for her to fix that. So it does happen, right? The expectation thing is interesting. Like Facebook, when it first started, had really complex privacy settings, and they were, there was user pressure to like make this simpler, and they did make it simpler. It's not necessarily beautiful, but there's fewer things to click. And the real question is, if I put a post on Instagram or Facebook, who will see it? Like, that's the basic question. Like, where will it go? Who will see it? And if you can't answer that, then there's maybe 30 settings. Like, how are you going to map that answer to the 30 settings? Like, where do you adjust, right? So the reason, this is another version of that thing with the different types of privacy. Can anyone, if you look at these, are there any of these where somebody feels like they might be in one direction on one of the attributes, but in another direction on the other attribute? Like maybe you're low on preference, but you're high on concern, or I'm just making that up. Anybody see some of these where they're a little bit more high on one and low on the other? Which one?
So the concern I'm worried that online tracking could be used to invade my
Privacy, yeah.
Because I have seen it since we all know that Google kind of like all our Android devices kind of secretly listens to what we say. Like I have had this like crazy. It might be coincidence, but I don't know what it is. Once I was like talking with my friends about some shoes, some Nikes, Air Forces, and some of that. So like we are talking about like around 1.5 hours because he's a very big shoe fanatic. So was I. So I was talking back and forth with his. So our phone is like kept here. So before that incident, I have never seen any kind of like shoe ads. Suddenly my Facebook feed are like flooded with various kind of Skechers, Nikes, Adidas shoe ads. So it's quietly tracking my listening to my words, or even if you like it happens. So it happens Google so much. I have seen it like if you going to Amazon or you. I'm not suppose I'm about to buy a headphone or so. So I went to Amazon and I checked the headphone prices. Okay, so these are the headphones that I have. But I didn't buy anything. I just checked the prices. Moment after I open Google, so when you open Google Chrome, so there is search bar, and on downside there is some kind of news reports. So there will be continuous various kinds of headphone related news related to headphones. These kinds of headphone came to market. Should you buy this? So if you have 5,000 rupees, so under 5,000, these are the headphones kind of good for you. But I haven't opted for this. I just check the price on Amazon or Flipkart, so that kind of concern is there. So it's clear that somehow, somewhere, the online tracking technology is being used.
Right.
So my privacy is being hampered.
Yeah.
I think also for me as well, like I'm very concerned that like they might know things, etc. But at the same time, I allow them to track me because somehow it's easier. Somehow, if I want shoes, I don't have to search up shoes. It's just coming to me. So like my
So it's kind of a paradox.
Yeah.
So at the same time, it is good, but sometimes it can be irritating.
Right. Yeah.
So
I can't explain necessarily the Google phone thing with your friend in the shoes, but I know the headphone example is from third-party trackers, right? Where Amazon tracks with like, I think maybe there's one called Third Wave or something, and then Amazon says, "Hey, Third Wave, he's looking at shoes," and then Facebook says, "Hey, Third Wave, what's he doing?" And then they report out on you.
And the cookie policies are also there. So if I want to add some open new websites, so do you want a cookie? If ignore that, but sometimes you'll just accept the cookies.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the usability is to go fast past the cookies, but
the cookies are there used for tracking our online activities and so.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very real thing. Like they listen to us. Even the needs are so much there, that you say something to the phone of the person you want them to think about. Like I was discussing Illuminati and some conspiracy theories with my friend. And suddenly on Instagram, it's
pushing that kind of content onto your feed.
Not just the content, like they were pushing talk groups about Illuminati. I was like, no, please. Because I saw a church where there was an Illuminati sign.
Yeah. Any other things strike somebody about? Yeah. Which one?
Behavior.
Behavior. Yeah.
If you use a tracker blocking tool that prevents the website still visit that prevents the tracking. But the blocking tool that can also access the tracking.
So then they know you're using the blocking tool too. Yeah, that's right.
That can access the data and you can give the data to the third party access.
Yes, it could if it's a slimy blocking tool. Yeah. So you'd want to review your blocking tool choices, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So nowadays also third-party application or third-party companies that are mostly from China, the Vivo phones and Android phones, I did a study on that. So in Android systems, there is a specific audio listening tool that has been pre-built. You cannot uninstall it, and that is listening to everything. That is listening only on specific devices. Due to that installation of the application, you cannot remove it. So in behavior, if you also use a tracker blocking tool, it won't be affecting anything
Yeah.
in that specific aspect. So it will be strongly agree we have to use it, because sometimes if we are talking about some personal things that should not be public, or some official matter that should not be in public, and it is being tracked, then it is a very big security threat.
This is a good example too of the mental models that we can have of systems. So for my freshmen in the bachelor's, I'm often teaching them like what a cookie is and how cookies work and how third-party cookies work, and often they're like, what? And they don't really get it until I explain it. And so you all probably understand it, and so you're able to better fight that, right? But like my grandmother wouldn't know how to do that. My mom even, So you need to have this mental model that's going to match up.
Just another point of view, we prefer to not share with the internet, but at the same time, on the other hand, we're writing everything down on ChatGPT. Even our feelings, emotions, everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's still unclear to me how much it's recording. I don't really know how much they're using. Yeah, I don't know.
So what we have to say, I would say strongly agree on preference and concern.
Okay.
In attitude, I would say strongly disagree, but because it's not too much.
Hmm.
And behavior-wise, I would still say strongly disagree, though my preference and concern are strongly agree, because I do not use the tracker.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good one. Yeah. All right, I'm going to keep going. Here are some good books if you're interested in deception on hacking. These are both examples of social engineering. So Kevin Mitnick is the author who is famous for hacking. And his first earlier book, the 2001, believe it or not, it was about hacking phones, right? So the internet really, the web just arrived. Who knows when the web arrived? Web arrived. Yeah.
So in 1980s?
It's like 95, 94, 95. So web comes 94, 95. So before that, a lot of people were hacking phone lines because they wanted long distance for free. And so Mitnick would do things like dress up like a person who's repairing a phone line on a telephone pole, like with the orange jacket and have a helmet. And then he would find somebody else who has that job and be like, hey, I forgot my badge today. What's the login again what's the code for the thing to get on the line? And then he would like climb up the pole and tap line, and the guy would be like, oh yeah, it's 2487. So you just have to be convincing, and it's the social engineering. So you're not having to like break a cryptographic password. You're just trying to convince somebody that you're the person. Or he would go up to like a secretary at a front desk and be like, oh, John is sick today, so I'm here as the substitute. Can you give me the info? And then he starts hacking the internet over here. And then he's so good at this that the FBI and the US hires him. Because they're like, you're so good at this, we're going to hire you to help us catch people. Yeah, there's movie stuff. Look up Mitnick movies. I mean, the books are the more full story, and there's a little bit of movie stuff. He's interesting. He's sort of full of himself, though. Like, you get through the book, and I'm a little like, enough about how I'm so smart. Tell me the story. But
there was this reel which said that if you want to get into any place for free without being stopped, just take a ladder with you.
take a ladder. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
They just think you're the repair guy and they let you without.
Yeah. And there's a video you can see on YouTube of this woman talks about how she hacks people's phone accounts. So she calls up and she gets a YouTube video called Crying Baby, and she hits it play in the background. So then she'll call up and be like, hello, AT&T, I'm really sorry, man, my husband asked me to get the number really done. What, I'm not on the number? I'm not on his account, but my husband needs it now, and the baby's crying. And like she gets the account number and everything, Yeah. Okay, this is a good hacking book, though. Hacking for Social Good. So if you like this sort of thing, this is full of how to win friends and influence people. One of the students I was talking about Dale Carnegie, like Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know if this is a popular book here. It's from the 50s, but it's sort of a book on how to be a good leader. But this is now a take on that about win friends and influence people and leave them better off. So it's another book I recommend. And these slides are all up in the drive, of course. Okay, so we talked about privacy. This is our checklist again. But then the next piece of the checklist is aging and individual differences. So we saw this earlier in the week, how people are getting worse with all their impairments and accessibility. and how you design for people with physical disabilities. So this is your like 1 minute reminder of accessibility and people with disabilities and different kinds of users, because that is also on the checklist. Right?
So, like 2 days back, you were mentioning that as age increases with respect to this light, that the sensitivity to blue wavelength reduces as people get older.
Yeah, they'll get worse at blue as you get older.
So is it good that because they talk about this blue filter on the mobile phone, so is that a good thing then?
Let's see, if you're filtering the blue, I think that's a different kind of blue, actually. I mean, they're worried about, like, I'm going to show you buttons to push, and maybe there's buttons that are, blue when you haven't touched it yet, and it gets dark blue when you mouse over it. But maybe if I'm old, I can't see the difference, so I don't know if I've clicked it successfully. But if you've got a blue filter on there, I think it's mostly the ultraviolet light. Maybe you're just trying to keep the ultraviolet light out of my eyes, and I think they're different. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's about keeping me from, not sleeping and that sort of thing. Okay. And then the other reminder from previous classes, we had these 3 levels, right? So every system, so on your checklist is, here's a system. How's it going to affect the individuals? How's it going to affect the community? How's it going to affect the culture? If everybody uses it, what happens? Okay. We did trust. With the compliance, reliance, and all that. So we got to think about trust. So trust is one of our things. Okay, the next one has actual new content for you here. It's about human error and when people make mistakes. So air traffic control has a lot of human error involved, right? We're not talking maintenance, we're talking, machines, we're talking human mistakes. And the intention is the key. Are the stoves designed like this here, where there's like 4 buttons in the front and there's 4 burners here, and it's easy to turn the wrong knob?
Mostly 2 buttons.
Okay, so 2 burners, 2 knobs. And is it clear which knob goes with which burner?
Yes, so in front of them we are like mounted.
Okay, so it could be well designed, right? Trying to think of a way to show. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of stoves in the U.S. where there's 4 burners, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 knobs. So it's not a normal mapping. And the best way to do this is to have something like 1, 2, 3, 4 burners, and then the 4 mapping matches. Yeah. Which what? The color could help too, right? That's right. Some people in their kitchens get really hung up on their color, though. Like a lot of the stoves are black, and you're like, So what's wrong here? Where's the human error? What's about to go wrong? No attachment, right? I'm about to miss my attachment. And so now there's a lot of email systems that will say, like, hey, you mentioned, Gmail now does this. You forgot your attachment. You mentioned attachment. So that's really helping with human error. So let's say I want to do, for those of you who like equations, I want to do some human error calculation. I can say, what's the probability of the event? Like, what's the probability that I forget to do my attachment? And then, given the event, what's the probability of the consequence? Like, if it's my boss and it's due right now, that's a big consequence. But if it's maybe due tomorrow and there's still time for somebody to say, hey, you forgot the attachment, then that's okay. And then here's cost of the consequence. So you can map this out, right? So here's probability of the event. Given that the event happens, what's the probability of the consequence happening? Like what's the probability that the boss says, well, you're terrible, you didn't send me the report on time, versus the probability of like, oh, hey, you just forgot the attachment. And then there's a cost of the consequence multiplied out. So that's one way to analyze this sort of risk assessment. And here's another way to put it. Like, probability of the consequence is probability of the opportunity to make an error times the error given the opportunity. Given the opportunity to have an email with no attachment, and then probably have no correction in time. So if I have that thing that reminds me you didn't do an attachment, then I get rid of a lot of that. So that's nice. Some of you from engineering will know about FMEA, failure mode effects analysis, and this is very similar. So that's like, I just built an engine and I want to know all the ways that it can fail. And I'm going to have probabilities on every failure mode, and analyze it down. So if you're doing usability of a software app, you can also say, what are all the ways it can fail? And what's interesting is you can have the app failing like, oh, it's got a bug and it crashed, but you can also have, well, the app failed because the user was so frustrated they uninstalled it. Right? And they're like, no, I'm going back to my old app.
So that, like failure mode effect analysis, how do we link this? Like there we talk about severity, occurrence, and detection of some event that should not take place, and then we calculate the risk.
Yeah, that's right.
So here, this is that is real, and this is hypothetical. Where how do we get the? This is based on past history.
That's an excellent question. He's over here like, oh, I want to use this tomorrow at work. So how are we going to get all the probabilities? And that is the question when it comes time for human stuff. And in fact, that's the next slide. It's like, that's a problem. And so some people will complain and say, like, getting the problems for humans perceiving stuff can be hard. Now you could estimate, just like we were doing with VACP earlier, we're like estimating the cognitive, you could estimate maybe reasonable probabilities because it maybe not matter between 0.6 and 0.8, something like that. The hardest thing with this mode is unexpected events that you just didn't dream up. There's this concept of the black swan. Have you heard of this? So swans are normally white, but every once in a while there's a weird genetics and there's a black swan. So people will talk about the black swan as like the really rare unexpected event. And they're hard to anticipate. So, yeah, and then the other thing is about independence of events. So this whole probability thing sort of assumes independence, that things are happening separately from each other, but they're not in reality, like a lot of stuff's connected. So there was a whole other field that's like, we don't do that risk assessment stuff, we do resilience engineering, which was a little controversial when it came out because it said, we're going to assume the machine's going to fail. People are like, what? We're John Deere, we make great tractors. No, we're going to assume they're going to fail. And we're going to assume they're going to fail most in these ways, and we're going to have backup methods. We're going to build backups for if they fail here, we're going to come in here. We're going to fail over here, we're going to come in with this. And so it's a whole different attitude that was controversial and not everybody appreciates. But it gets around this a little bit. So again, I'm trying to tell you about these a little bit because this is from the engineering mechanical world, and you can apply it to some of these things cognitively too. So the question is how much we're going to blame the people versus the machine. This is again the resilience engineering still. In the old safety approach and human error, it was like, oh, you know, what we told people what to do, and they didn't do it. And we're like, who's responsible for this? We need, you know, we had a plane crash. Who's to blame, right? And over here, it's more like, okay, what system is in place? What are people's incentives? What are the behaviors that our system is going to lead to? And where does that lead to death and error? So you have this sort of system approach. And it may not be that one person is responsible. So recently, I don't know if the news made it over here, I don't know, a year ago or something, there was a crash of this helicopter and airplane in Washington, D.C. So in Washington, D.C., where there's a lot of planes and a lot of important people, there was a passenger jet coming over and there was an Army helicopter and they totally crashed and everything blew up and everybody died. Like it was just like right into each other. So it's like 200 people died, right? And this is above D.C., where like the falling parts of planes could have killed even more people. So just now, they're coming out with like what happened, what went wrong. And so far, they've got 3 major people involved, like the air traffic controller and the 2 pilots, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing from the black boxes. And it's really interesting because it's not black and white. It's things like, well, we teach the pilots to do X, but they don't always do X. When they're stressed, they sometimes do less than X, or under these circumstances, they do these things. And by the way, the helicopter gauges weren't well calibrated because this machine is sort of wonky and is not always reliable. So it's like a multiple effects, and they combine, and then you have death. So it's like, okay, if I have enough complex systems, the probability of failure can grow because the probability of failure of something is more likely, right? If I have like a basket of 20 fruits, the probability that one fruit is bad is higher than if I have a basket of 2 fruits. So if I have a complex system with a bunch of pieces, the probability that something's going to go wrong is higher, the more you add in there. So it's nice to try to keep your systems as simple as possible is the take home. Okay, here's some types of errors. Slips versus mistakes. Slips is like, hey, I see the weather report, it's going to rain tomorrow, I should take an umbrella. And so you have the right plan, and then you leave for work and you forget your umbrella. So that's a slip. Like you had the right idea, but you didn't do it. Or I could say, well, I'm almost out of gas, but I want to do my shopping first. So it's like, no, that's a bad plan. So you executed properly. You decided to do the shopping first, and you did that plan that you decided on, but you made the wrong plan. So that's an actual mistake, right? Like you screwed up in your decision. Here's a very popular one, is the post-completion error. Here I assume there's copy machines for paper where you're like, I want to copy this piece of paper, I lift the thing and I put it on, I shut the thing and I push copy. A lot of times people will leave the original on the glass and they walk away because they've got their copy. Like I walked up to the machine saying, I need a copy. And I do the thing and I push, I get a copy, and now I got my copy, so I leave. You didn't walk away saying, I'm going to get a copy and an original. So that's post-completion error. I completed my task, and so here's the copy machine breakdown, task analysis. I put the paper, which means I lift the cover, place the original, close the cover. How many copies do I punch the number, make the copies, press copy, remove the copies, and I'm like, and now I need to go to lunch. My next goal. And you forget the thing about, get the next thing. There you go. That's right. There's a lot of these. Let's see, do I have the ATM one? Yeah, this used to be with ATM machines. So the very first ATM machines and the cash machines would give you your card back after your money. And then people would leave their card sitting there because they're like, I got my money, and they walk away. So now they will give you your card first and then give you the money. Let me go back a slide though. So you can try to design for these errors, the point. So if you're thinking of an app, you think about, okay, what errors are possible? What errors are likely? My users, what sort of errors are they going to make? And you need to anticipate them and have very strong cues, right? If you can't design out the errors, then you got to have very strong cues, like remember the original, like remember. Oh yeah, the other tactics you can have are to have an undo button. There's not a lot of mobile apps with an undo button. Can anyone think of a mobile app with an undo button? There are some, but like if I'm doing sketch, like I have a photo and I want to draw a mustache on somebody, I can do undo. Which one?
Design softwares like SolidWorks.
That's right.
In mobile application, most of the editing softwares have that undo option.
That's right. So I'm editing a photo, I draw the mustache on my mom or something, and then I want to hit undo. Yeah. This is 150 milliseconds. You think that's a short time, and human reaction times are around 400 milliseconds, but you need to have a system react within 150 milliseconds or people will think the button was not pressed, right? So if I press a button, it needs to go beep, or it needs to light up, or something needs to happen, or else like, well, I didn't press it. And then they press it again. So I'm not going to play this video, but Bonnie John is a famous designer of interfaces at IBM. And so she has a really nice video about implementing cancel, which is basically far more complicated than you would imagine. It's just hard to do cancel correctly. Because if you think about it, especially if you're in an involved state, like if you're in editing software or SolidWorks or something, maybe you're like, oh, I want a new cylinder over here, and I'm going to stretch it, and da-da-da-da. And then like if I hit cancel, what's supposed to happen? Is it just an undo, or is it like drop the whole cylinder? So it can get complicated about what cancel means depending on what context you're in. This is also an interesting, these are videos that are really sort of funny to watch. Dominic Furness is at London, University College London, and okay, one of them we have to watch, sorry, because it's too good. Is about the microwave races. I think this is the microwave races one.
$42 lakhs per annum.
Wow, 42 lakhs, that's your salary?
Yes.
And what do you do?
Okay, this is not. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to summarize because I want to get to the good part. But in this one, he is making tea, and he like pulls the tea down off the shelf, and he pulls the milk out of the refrigerator, and he combines them in the right way, and then he puts the milk on the shelf and puts the tea in the refrigerator. Right, and so he's morning. And he's got another one where he puts, I think it's shaving cream on his toothbrush sort of thing, because they're both similar tubes. So he'll do these sort of errors. But I want to get to the microwave races. Oh, this one's worth watching too. Okay.
Entered 15 mils per hour. In hospitals, infusion pumps and...
Come on, go. Why is it not doing its thing?
It is important that device design is right to reduce the likelihood of error. I heard of a case where a nurse entered 15 mils per hour instead of 1.5 mils per hour. People on our project think this was influenced by bad design. They suspect the nurse pressed a 1, then a decimal, then accidentally pressed another decimal. To delete this, she pressed the delete key, which strangely deleted both decimals. And then she pressed the 5. The nurse was sacked for not checking this figure. Reflecting on this, I went down to Swansea to find out more about this sort of work.
Recently, I've been looking at number entry in medical devices, and I've simulated one of the number entry systems seen in the syringe pump.
Sorry.
So there are 4 arrows that are used to increase and decrease numbers in this particular number entry system. And these 2 are used to increase the number. And these 2 are used to decrease the number. I think it's quite reasonable to assume that these 2 buttons, the small arrow and the small arrow, are sort of realistic in each other. However, this is not always the case in some of the values. So we have acute cases increasing or changing the number between 9, 10, and maybe changing the number between 18 and 40. So for instance, if we go to increasing by 1, we try to decrease, which is probably there.
Oh, I should turn on captions.
Go right up, 9.7, we're still increasing by 0.1, but suddenly we decrease by 0.8. I think this is very peculiar behavior. I don't think it was planned by the manufacturer, but it is sort of thing we've discovered. So I think it would be interesting to do an experiment to find out how much people look at the screen. So, for instance, I think personally that this particular user interface forces you to look at the screen. That might be one good thing about it.
So he's like, it's so bad, it forces you to look at it. So that's an interesting perspective, right? Okay, so, you know.
You don't know. You're really not sure what is going to happen when you press any of these buttons.
Here's the microwave races. And you could try this with your friends if you want.
Hello. I'm Rachel, and this is our microwave oven.
So my name is Chris. I'm a PhD student at UCL. So you can be using the microwave.
Okay, so my name is Rachel. Make my
He's done. I feel bad for her, right? I mean, these are postgraduate students, right? These are not dumb people, right? So, and now, yeah, it like won't stop. So the microwave has the chaos button, right? So these are graduate students, right? So the interface is so bad that it's going to stymie. So you have to worry about your design, right? And how it's going to affect people. It's going to lead them down this path. No, they were living in, like, people are like, oh, I live here.
Still didn't learn.
But in every appliance, we say that we only use 20% of the settings 80% of the time. So
Yeah, you only use some settings. So the half power thing, maybe people don't use that, right? Yeah. Our student group, our HCI student group that thinks UX had an alarm clock thing. We had, when you go to hotels, often there's an alarm clock. Less so now with people's phones, but alarm clocks vary a lot, and we had alarm clock racing. Like, quick, set the alarm clocks to alarm tomorrow at 6 a.m. How fast can you do it? And people were like, it was fun to watch. Yeah.
When these device modelers planning these things as to how it should be user friendly, like in this example, we've seen 4 different versions. So the other device modelers, why don't they see that this is so much easier? Why do they still do their own design when it's more cumbersome?
I don't think they're watching the movies. They're just not. They don't know how bad it is. A lot of them aren't really doing user testing. They're like, oh, let's make the buttons symmetrical and silver, and they're going to be pretty. They're not thinking about the time it takes.
So even in medical equipment, usually when we say we buy it, say from Siemens or GE or whatever, they say that we cannot use any other spare part because it has to be from there. It's a proprietary. Why don't they make it?
Oh, like universal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. I mean, some of that you have to use our parts is just, I think, a monopoly thing. They're just trying to get your money, but some of it does matter. Like the quality might degrade. I don't know when it matters and when it doesn't.
Machines which are very costly, but microwave is cheap. It's pretty easier to replace one than to replace.
Yeah, that's right. If it's an fMRI, you got to get it right. But yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So that's your checklist. We had the checklist from the user and checklist for the world. So human error, we had the privacy, we talked some about accessibility, the micro, meso, macro, the trust, the human error. All right, so now it's time. It's time for the activity. But before we do the activity, I want to go over and highlight our nice documents. So speculative fiction stories. Oh, pop-up blocked. So here we've got the stories. So I just encourage you to read these. I thought this was really well done. So thank you for that time and this effort. And we've got this one here, Beings of Tomorrow. And then we've got this one over here, Farming Redefined. So there's some nice stories. That's all the stories, right? No other stories coming? You got one more story? Okay, so get your story out there so we can all see it and admire it. And then the measures of trust, we're going to have some of that, I hope. So here's one here. Nice. And then, here's some other ones. Okay, let's do a quick look at the equations. So we're gonna have some weighted. We have weighted reliability, integrity, competence, benevolence. Okay, that's interesting. And then we're gonna have over here sum of each trust rating. So average, we're going to average across the ratings, okay? And then, oh, I get it. This is like a fraction. Number of promises over number of draws. Yeah, okay. 2 promises. That's good.
So that much. So that much was based on my real experience. I got badly scammed from a person.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's real life. Yeah. No, I'm not good that you got scammed, but that,
It was a good, like, now I really have trust issues from buying someone from Facebook Marketplace.
okay. That's great. All right. So please look at these. I think I was telling Prof. Mohit, y'all are doing just as well as the grad students I have at Iowa State. I mean, y'all are doing great. So I appreciate having you in the class. I mean, it's really nice. And so you're putting some energy in, and this is all good thinking. So that's been really great. So you would feel right in, you'd fit right in at Iowa State. Okay. So now, the activity does not have slides for once. It has a piece of paper. And we have the checklist at the top. And we went through and said on the system, you're going to imagine a system and you have to evaluate it. So imagine you're a consultant being hired to say, we're thinking of launching this product, and do you have any concerns? And you're going to work through this checklist of like, here's my concerns, here, da, da, da. So I would suggest a group of 2 or 3 people, and I've got 5 products described, 5 futuristic products, and I'm asking you to pick 2 of the products and use some of the lenses in the checklist. Lenses or checklists to look at those products. And so your deliverable would be, I'll make another Google Doc, and you could be like, okay, here's the product, the autonomous vehicle, here's our concerns about social factors versus uncertainty versus whatever. So it's like something, just a couple sentences for your client to say, I think this is a great product, but here are my concerns, and you sort of list them out. Does that make sense? Okay, so why don't you pass those around? Just pass them around.
So we're getting more structured texts.
It's on the sheet. Yeah.
Is it more like resonance engineering, like you figure out where it can go wrong?
Yeah, you can figure out where it can go wrong. Yeah. So do you want me to put you in groups, or you're good with your groups? You're good. Okay. Let's get Pranav in a group. Hello? Okay, so here's the QR code to get to this doc where you can put your work in. Or it's just in the same Google Drive folder as all your readings. So I want you to get a start on it now, and then so you can ask questions, and then we'll break for lunch and stuff.
Sir, this is measures of trust. When I scan.
Oh, does that go to measures of trust? Well, that's weird. Does anybody else get that? They go to measures of trust? Or it went to this one? You got this one. Huh. Maybe try again? You're good? Okay. That doesn't look like the activity. That doesn't look like the activity.
I just shared the link on the group.
Oh, okay.
For everyone.
Okay. No, that's fine. Are you okay?
Yeah, what it means, it communicates with a mobile app used by the middle-aged children or nurses.
Like I want to monitor my mom when she's interested in caries, so maybe I'm the middle-aged child. Or the nurse wants to monitor my mom. So something like that, yeah. Yeah, good question. Hey. Doing okay? Good. Does anyone have questions about the products or anything? Sorry, what?
So you had shown an emotion circle where it's
Oh yeah, the valence and
the
arousal.
valence and arousal.
Yeah.
That might be useful for us.
Okay, you want me to put it up there? Yeah, I'll go. I can put it up on screen. Hi. We get the emotions up there. Hi.
For every point, there is a lens. So, in each lens, do I need to give a statement or can I make it like that scale that how users will feel what will be their feedback?
I think you could, ideally, you'd analyze it from each lens, but on some lenses, you might just be like, we're okay here. Nothing big here.
Okay, okay.
You know.
If it is not okay, so what it should be?
Right.
That statement.
Yeah, maybe I have a concern about this.
Yes, so that concern in that way it can be fixed.
Yeah, ideally, if you can fix it, or maybe you can't fix it. We shouldn't launch this product.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, here's a good question. So on the analysis, you might decide, like I'd like it for you pick your product, and then I want you to look at it from each of the check boxes, each of the checklist items. But on some of them, you may be okay. So you may be like, hey, on this product, emotion's not a thing. We're not worried about that. But in this other checkbox about social factors, we have real concerns here because this is going to happen and this is going to happen. If you want to go farther, you could propose a solution, but you don't have to necessarily. So you're more like reporting to the client. Like, okay, if you launch this product because of the social factors, it's going to fail. So you need to worry about that, or unless you do this, or something like that. Okay. Is that all you needed? You just need the emotion thing?
Yes, of course. Please.
Okay, good. Do you have a partner, or are you going to do anything, or maybe you don't have time to do it?
I guess.
Okay. Do people have their partners figured out? Yeah. Oh. Oh, I thought y'all moved around. I thought maybe y'all are a group now. Okay.
Or maybe like there are only very less people left who we haven't teamed up with yet. So maybe we could.
Okay, because we got teams here, pairs here. I think y'all are all teamed up, right? Yeah, so it's the three of you and the two in front here. Okay, so y'all be, so you,
I'm also joining because this was our previous group.
okay, so you can join them, yeah, whatever you want. As long as you don't hurt their feelings too badly.
this like is your mention or this is just a random?
This is me making up things. Yeah.
This is to be real. Like some companies have already done this.
I wish, you know. Yeah.
So I guess you might have seen in China there are many robots which serve restaurants and all. Pretty autonomous they are.
Yeah.
I think they are trying to implement it in the medical industry as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much more preferred.
Yeah, Japan's all in the robots. Yeah.
People, there are less number of people, their population is decreasing at a steady rate, so they are buying robots.
Yeah.
Also, Japan has done a very innovative thing. They use the dyslexia patients, they are controlling robots right now. So they are getting a way to earn their medical fees directly.
Wait, so people who have dyslexia are controlling the robots?
Or who don't have body parts like they are
You will need
prosthetics.
Oh, people who need prosthetics.
They can't move for much time, but they can control robots.
using brain computer interface.
I think yes, there is
Yeah.
a brain computer interface. Also, I think there was joystick based interface too. For those who have hands, they can use their hands.
You asking us what to do in part of this AI agents or what's this thing is like different technological service products and what are the concerns.
Yeah, so this is like, you know, your boss says, hey, we're going to roll out this product. And you use this like a checklist to say, well, is the user's emotion going to affect effective use of this? Yeah, maybe we're okay with that. Is the user's memory workload going to affect this? Like, oh yeah, if they're really drunk or can't use their memory well, that's going to be bad for this product. And that could, maybe we should change something before we roll out this product. So it's like you're checking each of these to say, are any of these different lenses or perspectives going to affect the success of this product?
These are the different products, right?
Yeah, there's 5 products.
And all products are all from a different category and they have different kinds of user interface. For example, the last one does not have necessarily to do with the first person.
Yeah, that's
it's nothing
right.
to do with first person. This one is all about first person. There's
Oh.
nothing like you are the user, you are
Yeah,
the end user.
that's right. That's right.
But this thing is used by the corporations or hospital management. Not
Good
by
point. Yeah. Great point.
So maybe a lot of things that you are suggesting here might be an issue. It will be at a different level. So with this one, user emotion on the third level, maybe not an issue because it is used by hospital management systems. Even if there is a user emotion issue, it's not going to be affecting it.
Well, that's true. But they might say, well, the patient's emotion, you know, maybe the patient has an emotion and if the hospital buys it and then rolls it out and then patients all hate it, then that's a problem.
Yeah, because a lot of people just like the human intervention. Somebody coming to you and checking up, and you are admitted in the hospital, you have to go to hospital. The human touch, right? There are a lot of the studies, psychological study and psychological studies. They suggest when a nurse just goes and say hi, smile, now things will be good.
Yeah.
It's a before.
Yeah.
When someone comes in rude and behave very rudely, you feel emotion and just tracks the way.
Yeah.
How you're getting treated.
Yeah.
But when it comes, when there is the premise is that you want to stay, like save time and stuff. Basically, it's a cost thing.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with the emotions. The first premise of this whole
Yeah,
argument
that's
is
true.
money.
That's true. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether the what will add an experience. It's all about efficiency.
That's true. I think if you were the HCI or human factors consultant, though, you would realize, you know, you'd like, well, yeah, it's going to save you money, but this might have emotional impact on patients.
Yeah, but for this one,
Yeah.
the premise appears is
Yeah, maybe I didn't phrase it right.
no,
But
it's fine. It's actually right. There's nothing wrong about that. But as I was figuring out and I was looking at and trying to figure out like give the course and try to assign the main course which will be.
Yeah.
So I came to also like yeah, this is the point where maybe it's not about the end users, it's also from a different perspective. So you can add this, figure out at individual level, at the system level.
yeah, that's right.
And organization level.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's a great example of there's a lot of products where the customer is not the user.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's often with insurance. Like maybe I buy my own car insurance, but at least in the US, my employer buys my health insurance, but they don't care about my health. They just want to buy the insurance. Yeah.
It's just not because they care about it, it's just there is a legal binding they have to follow.
Yeah. Right.
straightforward.
Yeah.
So when, for example, this one. So first is on one state in the US roll out new law or a policy that every student needs to have some kinds of GIAN classes along with fire extinguishers. So whenever you're in condition, these classes can just guide you. So you have a night vision and a fog detector and all kind of things, and they can just guide you straightforward.
That'd be
So
great.
even when you are anxious or obnoxious, they will just give you a simple direction between the arrows, and you can just figure out the exit point. Even in a fog or like even in fire or any kind of
Yeah.
conditions. And they can also tell you don't go this side because there is a higher chances that fire might increase. Go this side. This is one
Yeah.
cooler.
Yeah.
Figuring out the different density of materials and do.
Yeah.
It could be that. Then it will be again a policy implementation rather than an individual innovation.
Right.
Yeah. The company would like to have this.
These are all good thoughts. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's yeah, we've yesterday created that use of science in this. Yesterday we were saying about the assignment.
Sorry, say again.
You were yesterday talking about the assignment regarding the trust matrix.
Yes.
Yeah, so I built a abundant matrix. So I can show you.
Yeah, is it already in the Google Doc or no?
No, I have not uploaded it yet.
Okay.
So actually I've created 3 different matrices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. So, any one of you thought about this? What it is? Anything what we can do in this? About the physical ergonomics? Any areas that you can think or correlate with respect to your the present work in which you are associated? Anything, any application?
Using the laptop also while typing, so it says continuous work as a repetition of our finger typing again and again.
So, what actually you want to analyze there?
So some keyboards around right now, they have some type of elevated surface on the back side, so the palm should rest on it, or else we have to keep our palm straight. So we can analyze how much.
But we have to maintain this neutral position, na? Okay.
Force right during the task is different in both the cases.
Hmm.
As we use of the keyboard is correct, the force is different in both the cases.
So what design changes you will do? Like let's say that you are analyzing the keying, okay, keying that keyboard. So you are just typing something, and that what you are going to get and what modification you are proposing based on the results that you are obtaining.
Change the angle of keyboards.
Angle of the keyboards.
Size of the keyboard, the more vast, the more difficult, the more concise, the more easy.
Okay.
Not so much also, but there has to be a perfect size with a huge portion of the position.
But nowadays we are going for a compact products. So although that maybe like if it is little bit wider, the keys will be the little bit wider, then definitely means we can completely that hit that for pressing. Okay, but what about if its size will increase then?
There are some small instruments available to raise the wrist.
Yes.
This little.
Okay, and those who are in industry, so this hand arm vibration may be related. You know what type of actually the work you are doing there?
This vibration part.
Is that vibration part is related to the work environment where you are working right now, or only the postures are important there, not the vibration or the forces?
Vibrations are important, but we are not currently directly involved with this kind of measurement.
Okay,
Because the height.
no, not the measurement part, but the workspace point of view. Where it can be applied means are you exposed to this kind of the environment in industry? So are you handling this any vibrating machines there? What which?
Stepper replaying are cabins are there.
Okay.
So they used to operate in the open exploded area.
Mm-hmm.
So they are facing lots of vibrational issues in their cabin.
Okay.
Working cabin.
Working.
They are operating
Okay, whole body vibration. So do we have any idea about that the seat pad accelerometer which I was talking about yesterday? Seat pad accelerometer, like something we are keeping on the seat, we are sitting, and through which the vibration which is passing to our body, that we are calculating. So have you ever used that? No. Okay, fine. So now, like based on this discussion, you can now think in that direction. Okay, how to correlate this when you will go to the actually the vibrating any environment. Okay, let's say so. This was the part of one part of the design. Okay, now in this in today's class we are going to discuss about the anthropometric design principles. So again, anthropometry is highly related with the human factors. Okay, so maybe some of you might be knowing about the terminologies. Okay, so basically when we are analyzing or studying this anthropometry, so there are two different parameters or the two different ways we try to describe it and try to understand it. One is the body growth and the proportion. So what basically the body growth and what is the proportion in our human body? Okay. So do you have any idea related to this body growth and proportion?
डिजाइन मतलब कई बार आर्ट क्लासेस में बोलते हैं कि 8.5 heads से बनता है बॉडी,
8.5 say, like those who are drawing actually, drawing. So that part is there, that is the purely drawing part. But here what we are basically, this body growth and proportion we are studying. So let's say that we are studying about the human factors. That means we are designing some kind of the parameters which, or the some kind of the interactions with which the human being is going to interact. So when we are designing, so that time we have to understand that what basically the body growth and what basically the proportion is. Okay. So in human body, the different parts are there in human body, right? And every body parts doesn't grow in a same, it does not follow the same growth rate. Okay. Like the growth rate which from childhood to the adult, what the growth the hand follows, the same growth is not there in our fingers or the palm. Okay. Or other ways. So like the trunk position in which it is growing, in the same way that the head growth is not there. Correct. So the growth is different, and for it is unique for each individuals. Next is the proportion. So again, proportion is specific for the human being. Okay, it is in a particular proportion it is varying. It is not like it is abruptly following any pattern. Okay, if it is following the out of the way pattern, then that is some kind of the abnormality in the human being. Correct. So this is the body growth and proportion with which the two things that we should consider. So another part is the somatotype. Somatotype type is nothing but the body type or body dimensions. Based on that, the physique of the body, how human being looks like. Okay, based on that classification has been done. So ectomorph, mesomorph, and the endomorph. So this scientist William S. Sheldon in 1940s, he basically first time used this terminology called the somatotype. And after that or afterwards, like all the nutritionists, the physicians, doctors, so every medical lines the people were using to like suggest the dietings. Okay, what are the nutrition quantity they want for a specific body growth or the body to achieve the body growth. Yes. So this is the body type. So based on that is classification there. Again, what basically the diagram is showing. So this is from the three different range is showing, that is the infant to the childhood, then childhood to the puberty level. Okay. So maybe it's like 0 to like infant is the newly born baby, we can say, then childhood something like to 4 to 8, then 8 to 13, maybe the puberty, where the basically the body changes takes place. Okay. So now if we talk about the body growth again and the proportion, so all the body growth or in a different age, okay, with and the different gender, how the different body part grows and when it starts differentiating. This is information is required when you're designing some particular product that is required for a kid. Okay, let's say that we are designing you have seen the pram or the baby walker. Okay, so if that particular product is there, so that is not differentiating about among the is a baby boy or is a baby girl. Okay, why they are not discriminating? Because if you will see this particular anthropometric data, so you can observe that up to 10 years of age, okay, the height variation and the weight variation among the boys and the girls is almost similar. Okay, so that much differentiation is or difference is not there. Okay, so only the preferences will be like the aesthetics part from the parent side, right? So maybe like if I am buying for a baby girl, then my color preferences may be different. The shapes which are printed there, that may be different, but that is going to selected by the parents, not the in general about the body dimensions. Okay, so the same type will be available in the different colors, different patterns. Okay, so there the body dimension is not considered. But what about the college? Like that is also, let's say that the something for sitting purpose, okay, of the kids or the infants. This is the chair, table chair arrangement. Again, when you are individually designing the chair and when you are designing the table chair arrangement in a combination, then there are so many parameters that changes. Okay, when you are designing alone chair or separately the chair only, then there are provisions that you can move your chair bit forward or backward, or for going inside in a row or coming out from that particular place. But what about when it is a fixed arrangement, like table chair arrangement generally in the classrooms which we see? So it is a fixed arrangement, so there is some specific amount of gap is there in which we have to enter, and from there only we have to come out. So what are the parameters are changing here? If you are like after sitting, your knees are touching to the desk, so you can little bit move forward, okay, or keep your chairs forward. But what about in that case when it is fixed arrangement? So these are the parameters that basically changes. So this is one application. What it is basically the cleaner floor for floor cleaning purpose. Okay, so now what type of like we are studying the anthropometry, right? So anthropometry, I will just discuss what anthropometry is. Before that, I want to discuss like there may be like different parameters of the human body. Okay, and in human body, some parameters we are considering in a static position, some parameters we are considering in a standing position. So here, although the application is same, that means the cleaning the floor, but the devices are two different dimensions are required, right? So in one, the operator is in a standing position, in another one it is the sitting position. So the dimensions which you require for designing the same product is different. Okay, so that means irrespective of the like although there may be the same type of design or the application you are selecting or for product design, but it is not necessary that a fixed set of informations only you require. Okay, it depends upon the creativity. Like earlier people might thought कि only in standing position it can be done, so they must have analyzed only the standing anthropometric data of the human being. Later some modification came and they thought कि okay, why to stand always? Okay, because these legs are not designed for standing always. Okay, it's not the earlier days, is the present era we are doing or using the multiple purposes we are using our limbs. Okay, it is not only that we want to eat food with our limbs and we want to run away when there is some danger. Okay, so that was the purpose of the limbs in ancient time, but it's not now. Okay, like we are operating so many machines with our limbs. Okay, so these are the applications which requires or functions the same thing or designed for same purpose, but the dimensions which is required are different in this too. Now we are moving to the definition. So as I told the ergonomics, so ergonomics in the same way, the anthropometry is also a Greek word, combination of the two Greek words, that is anthropos and metron, that means nothing but the measurement of the human body. Okay, so measurement of the human body means it's not like you are making any scratch or cutting in a body, but it is the outer dimension measurement. Outerwards you are taking the measurements. And the data which you are receiving, that is called the anthropometric data, and you require this particular data so that you can ensure that the machine or the environment fits the person. Like whatever be the data, let's say that this overhead projector is there. Okay, so whether it is comfortable, okay, to operate. If I am having the remote control for this, then it's perfectly fine. I need not to go there and I have to press. But if like missing remote control, then I have to stretch all the times if I want to switch it on, if I want to operate it. Correct. So this is the mismatch. The physical size of the person is somehow related to the ability to function. So this is basically related to the example which I was quoting. Okay, physical activity which we are performing, the functions which you are performing, that is related to the size. Maybe for the taller person it is maybe fine, but for the shorter person it may create the difficulty. again the mismatch. If there is a mismatch in the body dimensions, then the efficiency will decrease. So same way you can take the example again, like if it is at the convenient position, so easily it can be performed. If it is away, then the person needs to stretch or put some extra effort to carry out or perform that particular activity. And this anthropometry or anthropometry is the universally accepted the word, as well as this the techniques which is being used. So at a very low cost, simple the measuring tapes or the scales, you can take the measurement of the body, or because we require the outward body dimensions only for designing the human related parameter like products. If I talk about the classifications, then the basic classifications, okay, so structural anthropometry and the dynamic anthropometry. So what basically the structural anthropometry is? Structural, as its name is suggesting, structural means static, that means body is not in motion, body is at static position, and in that particular position you are taking the measurements. Again, the structural one can be in the seated position or can be in the standing position. Whereas in the functional one, functional means nothing but the dynamic. Dynamic means some parameters which is going to change. But what parameter in body will change? Okay, the length is not going to change. Then what is changing? The length or height is not going to change. Angles, like angles or the joint angles basically, okay, which and depends upon like what are the constraints are there, and based on that we are defining the degrees of freedom of the human body. Let's say that I am standing in front of this, so my hand movement can be up to this particular point only, but if I am staying away from this, then I can move my complete hand. Okay, in the same way, if the constraint or unconstrained, so constrained sitting position, unconstrained sitting position, constrained standing position, unconstrained standing position, this could be the multiple parameters that you have to consider. Swept area, that means how much I am able to cover. So that is again, so in that swept area also there are two different things. If I can reach my hand up to this particular position, so whether this particular area is calling the swept area, but what is the position where I should keep something which I am going to use. So based on that we are creating the envelopes, and that envelope is defined in two parameters, basically the allowable zone and the preferred zone. So what basically the allowable zone and what basically the preferred zone? Allowable zone is nothing but up to which you can move or stretch your hand or any limb, whereas the preferred zone is without any extra stress. Okay, you can reach up to point, like I can stretch up to this particular point, so that means this is my end point where I can keep something. But whether every time stretching this much is a wise decision? No, maybe somewhat here. So always that the preferred zone will be the inside the allowable zone, correct? So it depends upon like which particular motion you are considering. Let's say for the shoulder movement, so shoulder movement will give one envelope, that means the two envelopes for the allowable and the preferred zone. In the same way, like depends upon like what motions you are considering. Okay, so which joint you are considering. So these are the some parameters that basically you are going to calculate in structural and the dynamic. So it's okay. So reach and angle of variations that already I discussed. Now this like you were discussing about in a previous like design, universal design, right? So what basically the universal design is? So whether it is possible always. What basically the universal design? Universal design means it is fitting all. Okay, but whether it is possible. So again it depends upon the type of the product and the applications what we are designing, whether it is feasible or wise decision to design that particular product universally. Okay. So these are some anthropometric design parameters are there. Based on that, or principles are there based on which we are designing. So first design principle is the design for extreme individuals. So again in design for extreme individuals there are two parameters, design for maximum and design for minimum, correct. Then design for adjustability, design for average user, and design for different size user. So when one particular principle fails, then we go for the other one. When the another fails, then we move to the other one. Okay. So what are the dimensions and what are the basically the applications are there. Okay. So in the design for extremes, so like when you are drawing a straight line, so there are some extreme points are there. Okay, in a line. So end points. So that is basically the extremes, and that extreme is depends upon you, like how much the population you are going to consider. Okay, it can be between 0 to 100, it can be any number. Let us say that one end is 0, another end is 100. So in between that, what is your extreme end? Okay, how much you want to consider. So design for extremes, or again as I said, so design for maximum and design for minimum. Design for maximum means you are designing for the maximum side. That means you are utilizing the 90th or 95th percentile. Again it depends, okay, type of the product, 90th or 95th percentile. If you are designing for maximum, then it is assumed that the below that everyone can use. Okay, we cannot design for like universal means what, it is 100%. Okay, but that is the hypothetical. It is hypothetical. We cannot accommodate everyone. So we have to select some range. So either 90, so like doorway height or mattress or the bed, okay, or the elevation of the overhead conveyors, like the industries, like the overhead conveyors are there. So at which particular height it should be installed. Okay, let us say that in a machine shop the conveyor belts are there. So they better know what are the things or the machines which are going below that particular area, for maybe the carrying something, loading or unloading, or transporting one materials to the another place, from one place to another place. So they know what are the different machines are there which is going to pass from there.
But in a design can get customization for the user or for the whosoever is using, according to her or himself he can customize something.
You can customize something, but not everything. That's what I am saying. You can customize, but not.
Part of the design, but not the whole design.
That's what the products. Okay, let's say that what it is in the doorway's height. So let's say that this doorway's height cannot be customized. Okay, like this is the classroom where we do not know that who is going to come. Correct. We do not know who is going to come. In general, who is going to come in a college? College students. What is the maximum height could be the college height is to people? If we talk about the Indian context, 6 feet, that too is rare. Okay, so if you are taking 6 feet height, so that means you are considering sufficient range. Okay. Okay, that means a population size you are taking, size you are taking, considering, and out of that the 90th percentile data you are obtaining, and you are saying that what is the maximum height of this particular group who are basically going to utilize this facility or who is going to come. So if the maximum height person can come in and go out, that means the below that everyone can easily come and go out. Right. In the same way, the latch position or the door handle positions, what we generally see in our hostel rooms, okay, or in our the doors which are there in our house. So how we used to place or fix that particular positions. It is the reverse case. So, design for minimum, because in a hostel room it is not always the taller, maybe the students will be going to accommodate there. We cannot guarantee that. Somebody's height may be less, maybe the shorter height, right, short heighted. So, we have to accommodate them also. So, it is not like a latch we are providing at the top of always in the door. They may not feel comfortable every time to use that particular position. So, that is why in between or the bottom or the door handle height which is at the middle. Okay. So, there are two different parameters in the door itself. One is the door height, another one is the attachments or the interfaces which are associated with that door. So, it requires both dimensions, design for maximum also, design for minimum also, correct. The kitchen cabinet height. So, earlier you might have observed like the overheads. Okay. So, the in earlier days when the kitchens were, the overheads were prepared, so used to have the handles in the middle or at the top. Nowadays just at the bottom just they provide in the grooves, so that the short heighted people can also easily open that one, correct. So, this is for the design for the minimum. So, minimum is able to operate that. So, definitely the maximum can easily can operate that one. Okay? So, this is the thing. Then design for adjustability. When the design for extreme cases fails, that time we go for the design for adjustability. Okay. In the design for adjustability, we are considering the in between all, fifth to 95th percentile of data, adjustable seats, adjustable tables or adjustable whatever. So, so again like the chairs you might have seen, the application point of view, we cannot keep everywhere the adjustable things, okay, because if adjustable concept comes means it automatically inherent to the cost. So, economic parameters comes into picture. So, we cannot make everything adjustable. Okay? Like in a particular cabin or in a room, you will see how many the adjustable chair. Let us say that you are visiting your professor's cabin. Okay. So, how many chairs you will see or observe like it is adjustables, whether both side where the student is sitting or whether the professor is sitting? No, because professor is one who is sitting, but other side there may be the group of students may come, and every year it is keep changing. Okay. So, that is why it is a constant and we cannot provide that. Okay. Then design for average user. As I told, there are some economical part comes into the category of the adjustability. So, in general we design the average people when we do not know what are the population size is there, whether we should design for maximum or minimum, and the cost is such a big parameter, we cannot go for the adjustability. Like the staircase site, okay, we cannot customize it, we cannot make it adjustable. We do not know what will be the maximum or what will be the minimum user. So, it is a standard. Okay. The rows which are there in a like stadiums, okay, so is a standard. The checkout counters in the different shopping malls. So, these are also based on the average user height. Then the design for different size users. Okay. So, different size users, the basic example is the clothes, okay, because cloth is something which we do not want to compromise or we cannot compromise with it. Okay. That is why one particular type of the dress comes in a different sizes, correct. So, it is for different size user different product is there. It cannot be like you are also wearing the same product, the other is also your sibling is using. It cannot be the same. Okay. So different size users means the for each individual what is the body dimensions, according to that you are making the product. Okay. So over and above these design principles, there are some common sense principles are also there. Okay. So that also we have to consider. Again, it's the application specific. Okay. So the importance principle. So based on the importance principle, like the most important the parts which or the item should be used, that you are keeping in the most accessible location. Maybe like you are making a table chair arrangement. Okay, basically it is showing the positioning of the different stuffs that you are keeping in your place. Let's say that you are having a workspace, and what are the things that you want on your table. Correct. So you cannot keeping everything there. The most frequent, the most important things only you are keeping there, otherwise you are keeping aside. Frequency of use principle. Frequency of use means the most frequently used item should be in the most accessible locations. That means the thing which most frequently you are going to use, that should be in the nearest, like the allowable zone and the preferred zone which I told. So preferred zone is somewhere and the allowable zone is somewhere. Okay? Here is the preferred, that is the allowable maximum. So this nearby you, which is the frequently used, you want to keep there. In that other zone, that is the allowable zone, you are keeping which item is not frequently used. Function principle. So those items which are having the similar kind of functions. Okay, so maybe that 2 days back morning you were having one YouTube video with the other professor, right? Like with Professor Gilbert. Okay, he was showing that one particular person was trying to make tea, right? Do you remember that one? So this you can correlate with that. Okay, so he was just scratching his head. Okay, where are the stuff for preparing the tea? Okay, it was just he was holding a kettle. Okay, then he reorganized everything. Correct? Do you remember that one? So this thing you can correlate with that function use. So what are the functions? Like in your kitchen, you are keeping the that spices at one particular places, food at different location. It's not that mixing the food and fruit, everything you are not jumbling and keeping at one particular location, or you are not keeping the spices with that. Okay, for everything you are keeping a separate fixed the separate locations. So that is the function principle. So what a particular function is there, according to that you are keeping or grouping your items in your workspace or workplace. Sequence of use. Sequence of use is nothing but in which particular order you are going to use the particular stuffs which are there in your workplace. So it's not necessary like everything you are using or any order you can use. Okay, basically that requires like workspace arrangement. Okay, like if one particular product is there and that particular product is, let's say that 3-part product or the 4-part product. Okay, what basically the 3-part and 4-part is? That means it is having the one particular product is made up of the 4 parts or 4 components. Okay, so which particular component you should first try to assemble, so that you are going to get like in the assembly line process. Okay, assembly line units, that is basically very useful. So how they are arranging, so these 2 parts should be first joined, then with this particular combined one the another part should come. If you are aligning or trying to fix the other 2 parts, then you are inserting, that may create the problem, right? Like example, if we will take that the pen. Okay, so pen, there may be like different types of pens are there, but let's say that one pen we are considering which is having the 3-4 components. So in that refill is also one particular part. So refill, when you are going to insert that refill inside the pen, correct? So it's having a specific position where you require, after let's say that the front end and the middle one if you are joining, and after that it requires. not that the middle one you are having, then you are inserting the refill in that. So it will come out, correct? Or maybe let's say the top is there for capping it. So these 3 parts or the 4 parts is there. So after that you cannot keep the refill, correct? So is the sequence of use principle. So in which particular order it is going you the minimal time or the optimum time it is giving, according to that you are keeping. So this is basically for the workspace design. Earlier one was the principles based on the anthropometry or the body dimension of the human being. This is about the workspace design, the stuffs, the items which you are having or using based on that. So when you are performing the anthropometry, so like we saw that different types of the data. Let's say that static positions you are obtaining some data in a statical or structural anthropometry, same way the dynamic. But what about or how you are going to do that, how you are going to reduce that, and how you are going to use that, and why you are going to use and where you are going to use. These are the questions. Okay. So data collection is the process of like gathering the information, correct? So in the same way for the data you are collecting the data. So let's say that you have collected. So there may be the multiple methods, depends upon your the type of experiments or the requirement, you can use any of this. So data collection. So first one is here, the 5 different techniques is shown here. Basically the closed-ended survey. Closed-ended survey is again divided into, any doubt? Closed-ended survey again is having the two different subcategories, that is the categorical or the interval. Okay, categorical means yes no type. Okay, this interval or the ratio type, like while after purchasing in any commercial sites, if you are purchasing online, then you are giving ratings 5 star, 2 star, 1 star, no star. That is nothing but the interval. So already you are having a particular range, and out of that you are giving the marking. Yes and no is straightforward, whether you are liking or not. It's not something like I am liking it little bit, I am disliking it little bit. Okay, that questions also can be prepared, but then again it will be in the interval, like slightly or moderate, like that, the number of options which we are giving. Then the open-ended survey or the questionnaire. Open-ended means, so first one was the closed-ended. Closed-ended means you do not have the options to say from your side, but in this open-ended, basically you are asking about the opinion, correct? Liking, not liking, what you are not liking, what you are liking. So you are writing there. So this is about the open-ended survey. So these are the different techniques of getting the informations. So mostly used when you are performing some kind of the experiments. One-on-one interview, again based on the, like, that depends upon the product which you are preparing. Then you can do one-on-one survey. Let's say that I am interested to design a particular product for the male candidate. Then I require the one-to-one interaction with whom? So that is also the focused group. Okay. Then the focused group means, let's say that I am interested in the male, the kid or the adult, then that is the focused. So focused group means who is basically going to use it, correct? So it's not key I am designing a particular product for the male and I am asking or taking the review of the female, then my data is not good or correct. So, and the direct observations, direct observations you are not asking. Instead of that, just by visualizing or with your own experience, you are observing something which is functioning in front of you, something which you are seeing in front of you, and based on that you are recording the data. Now, as I told, the focus group and one-on-one survey. So that focus group, if you are not taking the correct data from the focus group, then it will result to the faulty data. And when you are ending with this faulty data, then there may be some problems in your end design. Okay, let's say that I asked you to use this particular doorway height I asked to design, and you have not taken the data, correct data of the all the populations who are going to use it. Okay, you said ki okay, I have less time, I just only measure the 50% of this, and 50% is sufficient data, I will design based on that. But the population size was given to you and you have to design with the respect to the maximum, but you design with the minimum. Then when actual time of use will be there, that time the maximum height people is not able to come in or go out, then the design will fail. Correct. So that is the distorted finding we are saying, or impact of the faulty data. So impact of the faulty data is going to lead with the wrong product. Okay. Again, when you are designing it's for a particular product, so it depends like how much it is going to impact. Okay. So there are different types of the products is there, and based on that there are severity level associated with that particular product. Okay. So let's move back to the 5 years. Okay, 5 years down the line, the vaccine, COVID period, right? So that was something which is developed. Let's say that that is the product. Okay, that particular vaccine. So they must have trial first. If they have not trial, then because everybody have taken that particular vaccine. Okay, so just see there, if the faulty data was there associated with that, then what will happen, the end result. Okay, if I am designing a particular table, chair, there may be like I can little bit maybe casual, but when it is associated with the life, let's say that airplane aircraft cockpit design, okay, so many people are associated with that only. If one particular faulty design is there, it's going to have a very high impact on the human being or the economic. Correct. So depends upon the type of the product that you are designing. In that way, the role of this faulty data plays important or bigger role. As we are getting the data, so all the data we cannot use. Okay, or let's say that I am keeping in front of you the hundreds of data or thousands of data, then you are not able to make anything out of that, the thousands of data. Then you require the sorting of that particular data in some particular form. So for that you are using the statistical techniques, that mean, median, standard deviation, something like that. Okay, that is basically giving the representative or a particular significant quantity based on the overall the bunch of the data which you are having. So data reduction again, so these are the some other needs are there, because if I am keep on just collecting the data, thousands of lakhs of data, because any survey or any kind of the sensor if I am using for measuring the data, then it is going to give me thousands or lakhs of data. So then the storage problem will be there, then it will increase the storage capacity increase means decreasing the efficiency, that you can easily correlate with the system which you are using, computer system or the laptops which you are using, just full it, then just see the performance, that is nothing but the same, the impact of the data on the system. So these are the needs why we require the reduction in the data. Hypothesis, do you know what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is general statement or it is different? Hypothesis is a general statement or is something else? A testable prediction. Okay. So hypothesis means it is not tested. It is not tested or proved. Okay. Something where uncertainty is there. It may be, it may not be, but it's not guaranteed. So that is the hypothesis. It's not a general statement. ठीक है, दिन के बाद रात होगी is not hypothesis. It's right, something like that. अगर मैं यहाँ से गिरूंगा तो मुझे नहीं लगेगा या लगेगा, it's not hypothesis. If something is, if I am falling from here, then definitely I'll get hurt. Correct? No, maybe less or maybe more. That depends कि from where you are falling and how you are falling. ठीक है? So that depends, but it is going to hurt you. So this is not the hypothesis, is a well known, something where there is some question mark is there. Okay, unpredictable things are there. Both chances are there. It may happen also, it may not happen. So that is nothing but the hypothesis. So hypothesis is an educated guess you are making about something in the world around us. It should be testable either by experiment or the observation. In hypothesis, there are two types of hypothesis. One is the null hypothesis, another one is the alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis means you are having the set of the data and the means are same. You are having the set of the data, means are not same. Alternate hypothesis. I have not saved, but okay, thank you. That's it. Anything else? If you have any doubt? Om, any doubt?